The mana calculation fan is simple. Massive thing weighing thousands of kilos. You pour mana into it, and the faster it spins, the more mana you have. Average score on the Hunter exam, 1,513 spins. The all-time record, 4,022. And our boy is about to shatter it. Today is the big Hunter's exam day. Every student is anxious because this can change their life. 100-meter dash. Average is 3.6 seconds. Record is 2.7. Our boy crosses in 1.2. 3,000-meter run. Record sits at 3 minutes, 17 seconds. He clocks 1 minute 17. Bro lapped the record holder. Push-ups and bench press, all gone. Every physical test on the board broken. Bro is on that Say Thomas streak. Students who used to mock him are now glued to the windows like it's a zoo exhibit. Then comes the fan. Here's the thing. For 3 straight years, every mana test he ever took showed the same result. 0. Couldn't even move the dial, couldn't make the fan twitch. He'd stand there straining with everything he had while the whole class laughed. But now he's focused, because things changed. He places his hand on it. The fan starts spinning slowly, making its first turn. Then in a split second, it jumps to 1,020. Pure dense mana starts dissipating like crazy. The numbers climb to multiple 9s while people are sent flying by the sheer force, until boom. The entire mechanism rips off the base, flies across the field like a giant blade, and crashes straight into the headmaster's office. Inside that office, the headmaster dives under his desk. Beside him sits Midori, the literal strongest hunter on Earth, and he's the only one in the room laughing, because the last person to ever get an immeasurable score on this exact test was him. So how does a guy who failed 3 years straight suddenly match the world's strongest hunter on his own exam? Before today, this boy, Kanagi Minato, was a joke. Rewind to yesterday, the whole class is jumping around celebrating their hunter exam results. Broke is sitting in the back staring at his phone, watching the same word load on his screen for the 3rd year in a row. Failed. Tears start dripping down his face while everyone around him is screaming with joy. He carries the crest of the chosen ones, a mark on his body that's supposed to scream destiny. To make it worse, his classmates notice him crying and immediately start mocking him. Then comes Hizaki, A-rank hunter, golden boy of the academy, the dude who killed a dragon in 1 slash and gets documentaries made about him. To Hizaki, our boy is a wallet, spent a full year stealing his lunch money, beating him up in private, and milking him dry. And in front of the cameras, Hizaki tells the reporters that he's been helping our boy, that the protagonist keeps begging him for money and getting in the way of his training. The reporters eat it up. They praise Hizaki like a saint while bro stands there shaking, forced to smile and thank his abuser on national TV. Then Hizaki invites him to the founder's mausoleum that night, says he'll arrange a retest. Bro shows up, and of course it's a setup. Hizaki's whole crew is digging up the mausoleum like grave robbers, looking for relics. Bro tries to fight, gets folded in 1 punch. Then Hizaki does the most cartoon villain move ever. Picks our boy up, drags him to a cliff, mocks his dream of being a hunter, asks his name one last time just to flex that he never even bothered to learn it, then drops him. Bro plunges into the river thinking this is genuinely the end of his story. But the second he hits that water, light, voices, figures with no faces, the 106 founders, the same legendary heroes from the books he memorized as a kid. Their souls were sealed in that mausoleum the whole time, and Hizaki accidentally cracked the seal by yanking out the relics. They look at the crest of nothingness on his body and tell him the truth. The mark is empty by itself, but it can hold anything. They offer him a contract. Pick 1 founder, inherit 1 skill, magic, swordsmanship, alchemy, archery, choose. Bro says no. He doesn't want to be a copy of anyone anymore. He wants all of them. The founders go silent. They tell him no human body can hold that much, but the crest of nothingness opens up like a black hole and starts pulling all 106 of them inside him. Turned himself into a one-man hall of legends. He shoots out of that river like a missile, lands right in front of Hizaki and his goons, picks up a small branch off a tree, a literal twig. Hizaki's A-rank swordsman bodyguard charges, screaming about how MC should feel honored to die by his blade. The moment he passes our boy, blood erupts from his own body. Rucker got cut down by a tree branch he never even saw move. The mage of the group starts casting a spell. Our boy fires back with Thunderbolt Hadad, high-tier magic, no chant, and blasts straight to the ground. Hizaki can't believe it. Stories start flooding back into his head. The legend of a swordsman who beat 10,000 soldiers with a wooden stick. The wizard who could cast without saying a word. Rupp punches Hizaki in the face so hard he goes flying, but that punch wakes something else up. The relics Hizaki ripped out of the mausoleum weren't just treasures. They were a seal, and Hizaki just released a tower-tier sealed boss monster. A massive shadow demon climbs out of the bag, aura so heavy that all the way in the city, sec-rank hunters drop to 1 knee. The thing locks onto Hizaki and crushes him in 1 tentacle. Now it's just our boy and a beast that's far beyond S-rank. With 106 legendary souls, he's got the founders inside, but his body still can't keep up with their full power yet, so he runs. He grabs a fallen sword, climbs, dodges, lets each founder take turns guiding his movements, the 10,000 manslayers blade work, the great wizard's lightning, the archer's aim. One by one they pour through him. Each switch makes him stronger. The fight ends with the swordsman taking control and slicing the demon clean in half with the legendary one-handed wave-cutting blade. Across the entire city, every hunter felt that aura. Even Midori, the strongest awakened on the planet, drops what he's doing to ask who killed an S+ monster before I got there. The answer is the kid who failed the hunter exam 3 years in a row. Cut to the next morning, same academy, same field. Bropun's limping toward the track, body still wrecked from carrying 106 souls through a boss fight, but he's been told he's getting 1 more shot at the hunter exam, and that's when he went to take the hunter exam again. But after the mana fan destroyed the office, Midori came to talk to our boy. He is shocked. This is the strongest hunter alive. After landing, Midori speaks to him directly and praises his exam results, but Kanagi can barely answer. Then Midori gives him one more test. The protagonist only has to land a single hit on the world's strongest hunter. MC freezes when he hears that. Midori is only 23, yet he became a full hunter at age 9. His name is already legend. He has burned thousands of demons to ash in moments. Other hunters don't even dare challenge him. 10 years ago, he wiped out the Pandemonium alone, and 5 years ago, he stopped the Kyushu outbreak. He's a monster on another level. So when Midori explains the challenge, he can hardly believe it. Hinoki, on the other hand, is thrilled and immediately tells Kanagi to hand his body over. Midori lays out the rules simply. The protagonist has 1 minute to hit him. Win or lose, there will be no punishment. Midori will only strike once every 10 seconds, so the match stays fair. There is no reason to hold back. MC can use any skill or any weapon he wants, while Midori won't use his own techniques. To show he means it, Midori summons a huge collection of weapons and lets him choose. Seeing so many famous weapons appear at once makes the whole thing feel unreal. Kanagi is still trying to process that he's about to fight Midori one-on-one, so he hesitates, then asks if he can really use any weapon. Midori casually picks up a katana. With almost no effort, he slices it in half and says plainly that his body is tougher and sharper than any blade. The protagonist barely has time to take that in before Hinoki snaps. Furious at Midori's confidence, he demands control right now. His power swells, ready to burst out. That is when Kanagi realizes Midori's strength is on the same level as the Founder's. Against someone like that, he has almost no chance. Even so, he knows he can't waste time hesitating. By now, all the students have gathered to watch the fight. Without any warning, Midori starts the countdown with a small smile, signaling the test has begun. Kanagi grabs a sword and rushes straight at him. Hinoki asks if he's really planning to fight alone and says that's not fair, but MC ignores him and keeps going. He knows borrowing the Founder's power would be easier, but if he wants to become a legend, he has to do it with his own strength. He swings at Midori, but Midori avoids it with barely any movement. He keeps attacking, while Midori casually stays on his phone, asking what social app he uses and joking that this is definitely going viral. The students are stunned that Midori can dodge every blow without even taking the fight seriously. Still, Kanagi refuses to stop attacking. Then one student notices something strange in the way he moves. The protagonist raises his sword, fakes a downward slash, then switches fast into a horizontal strike aimed at Midori's feet and throat. The move is perfect, and Kanagi is shocked by how naturally his body responds. He also notices he isn't getting tired. That makes him wonder if this is another effect of the Founder's power. But Midori suddenly puts a finger against MC's head, ready to flick him, and casually says 10 seconds are already up. He barely dodges, but the force of Midori's attack tears apart the field. Seeing that destruction, Kanagi realizes his head would have been blown off if it had landed. Midori looks at his own hand, confused. He didn't sense killing intent from the protagonist, so now he wonders if he judged his force wrong. MC starts to panic, realizing he'll die if this keeps up. Desperate, he tries to remember the feeling of his stronger self. As he focuses, a powerful aura bursts out of him, and even Midori is caught off guard. Kanagi charges again, now moving much faster. The students shout that even the cameras can't follow them anymore. Midori notices the change and wonders if this power needs a trigger, or if he has been hiding it on purpose. Another 10 seconds pass, and this time Midori decides to hit him more lightly. He lowers himself, gets his finger ready for another flick, but changes it at the last second and taps Kanagi in the chest instead. The blow sends the protagonist crashing hard into a wall. He coughs up blood, but even then he's amazed. He's actually fighting the strongest awakened in the world. Kanagi knows that if he still had yesterday's body, that single hit would have killed him. Instead of scaring him, that thought makes him smile, because it proves he's getting stronger. Even so, MC knows he still isn't strong enough to pass. He forces himself forward and rushes Midori again. Then Midori suddenly appears at his side and he freezes. Midori apologizes and says he's seen enough. The 30 seconds are over. Then he chops the protagonist in the back of the neck, and Kanagi slowly blacks out as he falls. Midori notes that he's a genius, just not on the same level as the others. In the end, MC still can't bring out the power Midori felt before. Midori calls his secretary and says they're leaving, clearly let down by the result. But right then he grips his sword again. At once, Midori feels a fierce aura behind him. He turns and sees power pouring off Kanagi's body. Speaking through the protagonist, Hinoki says the stubborn kid is finally asleep, so now he can take over. He steps up and tells Midori they should keep this fight going a little longer. MC's spirit, pushed out of his body, panics when he sees Hinoki controlling it. But Midori only smiles, realizing this is the presence he sensed earlier. He wonders if it's another person or some kind of skill. Either way, one thing is clear. Kanagi is a monster now. With Hinoki in control, he attacks at once and yells at Midori to stop spacing out. Midori instantly sees the difference. The movements, speed, and power have all jumped to another level. A blade suddenly slices toward Midori's face, and he barely ducks under it. Kanagi swings again, making Midori jump back to open space between them. Still surprised, Midori watches as the protagonist sets up another strike in a flash. The next slash comes fast, but Midori lowers himself just in time, and the hit slams into the building behind him instead. The students inside panic when they realize how close that was. Midori sees that Kanagi's swings are now hard to read, though he can still follow the flow behind them. Hinoki laughs and says that's the kind of skill it takes to beat an S-rank like him. Midori raises his hand again, planning to put MC to sleep one more time, and points out that only 40 seconds have passed. But he bursts forward with crazy speed, swings, and shouts that Midori won't touch him. Midori springs back to dodge. He laughs, impressed by Kanagi's skill. The students can barely believe it. Midori is being pushed on defense. The protagonist calls him boring and tells him to stop holding back. He warns Midori not to look down on him or he'll get beaten up. Then he jumps in again without hesitation. Midori just laughs and agrees. With a quick kick, he sends a stone flying toward the weapons behind him. The weapons rise into the air at once, and he leaps up, catching Kanagi off guard, then snatches one from above. MC lights up, saying Midori is finally getting serious. They crash together in midair, foot against foot, leaving the students staring in shock. Both grab whatever weapons they can reach, breaking them apart with raw force. Inside Kanagi's body, the founders watch Hinoki go all out. They're impressed Midori can keep up. Old Man Spirit wants to join in, but another founder snaps at him for being tactless. The Great Wizard stays quiet, then realizes he has been watching Hinoki's movements and trying to copy them. He sees Hinoki shift his balance as he springs up from below, but the sword in his hand breaks again. Annoyed by the weak weapon, Hinoki gets angry. Midori, meanwhile, is having a blast. Then he notices there aren't any swords left and wonders if Kanagi will switch to guns. With a grin, Midori calls out that only 10 seconds are left and asks what Hinoki plans to do now. Hinoki looks toward the building behind him and leaps for it. He heads straight to the man who shoved Kanagi earlier and takes his sword. At that moment, Midori closes in and throws a punch at Hinoki. The hit blasts against the building with a huge boom, but Hinoki dodges in time and appears right in front of Midori. They go right back into their midair exchange. Midori yells that this is fun and says they should keep going a little longer. Meanwhile, the students realize the building is about to collapse. As the fight reaches the rooftop, Midori's secretary watches calmly. Midori puts his hand on a huge fan, gripping it hard enough to crack it. He rips it free and points it at Hinoki. Then he hurls it at him, but Hinoki, using his one-handed sword, cuts through it with his dice-style sword art. The fan bursts into tiny pieces, and Midori excitedly praises his skill. Hinoki doesn't wait and throws his sword at Midori next. To Midori's surprise, the sword shatters on impact. Midori lifts his hand, aims at him, and calmly says 60 seconds have passed. Then he slams Hinoki down with a palm strike. Hinoki clicks his tongue, but before he can move, Kanagi suddenly jumps onto his back and shoves him toward the other founders. As Midori's attack closes in, the protagonist gently guides it off to the side and avoids it. That move stuns both Hinoki and Midori, but the impact breaks one of Kanagi's hands. Even so, he stays locked on his goal and punches Midori in the face with his other hand. Inside, the clash between the singularities feels endless, a brutal fight over one tiny opening, like a chess game between two even players. But even with all that intensity, Hinoki knows it only lasted a moment. Watching proudly, he realizes Kanagi has opened a new path to win. MC, though, is stunned when he sees Midori stop his fist at the last second. He feels crushed, thinking he failed to land a real hit. Then Midori smiles, pulls Kanagi's fist the rest of the way to his own face, and gives him credit for it. Without hesitation, he says he passed. A second later, both of them drop to the ground. The students watching can only mutter in confusion, unable to figure out what just happened. Still holding the protagonist's unconscious body, Midori calls for his secretary Rin and says it's time to go. Ryan appears beside him and asks how it turned out. Midori says MC passed and admits he finds him interesting. Then he adds that he accidentally broke MC's arm and asks her to heal it. She agrees right away. The students overhear this and can hardly believe he really passed. Then it hits them. The protagonist actually punched Midori. Cheers explode all around and the noise wakes the protagonist up. As Ryan heals him, she tells him not to move. He listens and thanks her. She also congratulates him for passing. Still stunned, Kanagi sits up and asks if he really managed to hit Midori. Before he can think it through, Midori suddenly appears beside him, amused. He doesn't drag it out. Midori just says a pass is a pass. He admits he started taking the fight seriously, once MC kept attacking. Midori praises him too, saying, dodging his strongest attack and moving like that was impressive. He tells Kanagi to be proud of what he did. He settles down and accepts the praise. Then he immediately moves on to the next thing, asking what happens now that he passed. The question catches Rin off guard, and she looks to Midori, who seems just as unsure. Later that night, back at home, Kanagi helps his mother clean while she gets food ready. She casually asks how many guests are coming, and the protagonist, not really sure, says maybe just one. His mother says it's been a huge day. Kanagi passed the hunter exam and even caught Midori's eye. She tells him she always believed he could do anything if he kept working hard. MC quietly takes in her words and appreciates them. But then she worries about someone so famous coming to their home and jokes that he might mistake it for a doghouse. He quickly shuts that down, saying Midori isn't like that. After helping out, he finally drops onto his bed, still thinking about everything that happened. His eyes land on the card Midori gave him, and doubt creeps in. He can't stop wondering why Midori seems so casual about all this. His mind drifts back to earlier, when Rin twisted Midori's leg after the fight. He still remembers Midori's scream and Rin snapping at him. Back then, Midori told the protagonist that winning meant he had agreed to become one of his comrades. Confused, the protagonist denied ever saying that, and Rin tightened her grip on Midori's leg. Midori then told MC there were too many people watching, and suggested coming to his house that night to talk properly. He said he'd explain his choices and tell him who their real enemies are. Kannagi keeps wondering who those enemies could be, since the tower was already destroyed by the founders and hunters are supposed to deal with the monsters from the dimensional crack. He wonders if something else is going on, but soon falls asleep. A sudden shout from Hinoki jolts him awake. He sees Hinoki and the founders in his room. Confused, he asks why they're here and what's going on. Hinoki only says they were talking and just finished. Still confused, Kannagi quickly covers himself and nervously asks if they decided who gets his body. Before Hinoki can answer, the doorbell rings. The protagonist apologizes, assumes it's Midori, and says they can talk later. He heads for the door, but the darkness around him feels wrong. Then, to his horror, he finds his mother collapsed on the floor. Panicking, he calls out to her and rushes over, but stops when he notices someone sitting in the kitchen. The stranger is eating the food she made, praising it while acting like nothing is wrong. In a mocking voice, the man says Kannagi should train his mother better, and that they need higher quality food if they want to impress guests. MC demands to know who he is and what he did to his mother. The man doesn't care. He tells him to watch his mouth and introduces himself as Heitani Goru, an S-rank hunter and one of Midori's comrades. Then he orders him to grab his luggage because they're moving to the base. The protagonist boils with rage and throws a punch at Heitani at once, but Heitani dodges easily and appears behind him, asking if MC is picking a fight. MC says nothing. He thinks about his mom promising to raise him proudly on her own after his father died. He remembers her old beat-up shoes and how she kept telling him to spend money on new sneakers for himself instead. He also remembers her congratulating him earlier and saying she'd make his favorite tonkatsu for dinner. Staring Heitani down, the protagonist demands to know what he did to his mother. Watching closely, Hinoki recognizes Heitani as an S-rank hunter from the previous era. Irritated by this cheap Midori knockoff, he decides it's time to move. After seeing Kannagi fight Midori, the founders now understand how to deal with him from here on out. Heitani just laughs and mocks MC, saying his angry face is kind of cute. He lifts his hand to slap him, but he doesn't flinch. Even as the hit comes in, he stays calm. At the last second, Kannagi catches Heitani's wrist and easily flips him aside. The old founder is shocked. He knows that move from the old monster battles. A second later, Heitani is thrown through the window and smashes into the backyard wall. Still, he lands cleanly and walks forward again as if nothing happened. Trying to process it, he wonders if that was Aikido. Thinking back to Kannagi's match with Midori, he had already noticed not just his huge aura and sword skill, but another strange power too. The protagonist notes that Heitani is tougher than Hizaki. Running out of patience, MC demands an answer. He asks again what Heitani did to his mother, who is still inside, shaking in pain as the poison spreads. Heitani laughs and says Kannagi really has no idea what's going on. Then he finally admits that his mother was in the way, so he knocked her out with poison. Smirking, Heitani adds that if she's lucky, the damage might stay minor. He coldly says he doesn't understand. That makes Heitani look at him, confused. The protagonist asks why they'd hurt the family of someone they want as a teammate. Heitani laughs at the word teammate and suddenly appears behind him to attack. Kannagi barely dodges, but Heitani keeps coming, saying MC was never going to be their comrade, just a puppet forced to obey. He says once his loved ones become hostages, he will have no choice, then he calls him naive. Before the protagonist can respond, Heitani stomps on his foot and cuts him, sneering as he asks if he was right. Kannagi jumps back and feels his cheeks start to burn. When he touches it, he realizes the poison is already spreading. Grinning, Heitani shows the poison needles on his fingers and says it's already inside MC. He explains that his skill, Phantom Bug's Poison Deadly Vision, lets him make dozens of poisons from his own body. He complains that this job is annoying. If he wanted, he could spread deadly gas across 5 kilometers, but he can't do that in the middle of the city. Then he warns Kannagi that the poison will kill him in 1 minute, unless he joins their group and takes the antidote. Otherwise, he dies. He realizes how deadly the toxin is. For a normal person, escaping it would be impossible. Looking at his hand, he calls out to Valentine, the god of medicine, and asks if she's inside him. The founders all turn toward Valentine, who looks startled and confused. Kannagi apologizes for calling her so suddenly and asks if she can teach him later how to cure the poison. Flustered, she says yes. Annoyed, Heitani throws more poison at him and demands to know what nonsense he's muttering. The protagonist dodges and explains that the Aikido move he used came from one of the gods inside him. The old man is stunned, realizing MC copied his technique from seeing it just once. Then he calls out the 10,000 army slasher, Hinoki. the blue spear of destruction, shimmer Kalkus, and the heavenly bow Margit. He says he learned and memorized all their techniques from the records, then tells Heitani the founders he once admired now live inside him. That leaves Heitani stunned. But instead of backing down, Heitani gets furious and yells that he'll make Kannagi suffer. He rushes in with his poison needles ready. The protagonist jumps away just in time. Heitani's strike hits a tree, and it instantly withers and dies. He attacks again, shouting that if Kannagi kneels and begs, maybe he'll get an antidote to ease the pain. Once the agony takes over, he'll never be normal again. His mind will break, but MC says nothing, and waits for the right moment. Just as Heitani reaches him, he slides aside and presses a palm into his chest, using the fist of Saint Wontak. The blow makes Heitani cough up blood, which shocks Wontak inside him. The impact launches Heitani into a streetlight. Kannagi follows with a kick using the feet of Light Eilerson, sending him flying even farther. Eilerson is stunned by the force, but Heitani still gets back up fast. In the next instant, he's right in front of the protagonist again, striking with both hands. Kannagi slips through the attack and snaps some of the needles, then drives the sharp beak corral into Heitani's stomach. Next, MC slashes him with Dragon's Claw, Rowan's skill, leaving Rowan shocked inside him. When Heitani grabs him, he uses the flipper of Lilac and whips Heitani through the air. As he's tossed around, Heitani can't understand what's happening. The poison should have blurred Kannagi's mind and hit his nerves by now, yet he's still fighting at full strength. Then the protagonist activates the Magus of Truth, Melteus Silentius, and fires it at Heitani in a massive blast. Everyone is left stunned. Hinoki asks the founders if they saw that. He says that after beating Heitani, Kannagi started copying all of their techniques, both physical and magical. He doesn't care if it's because of the crest of nothingness. MC is interesting, and the founders agree. Hinoki says they should train him. If they do, Kannagi could become the strongest Awakener. Elsewhere, hooded figures race across rooftops. One tells the others to hurry. Nemours guilds are after him, so they need to reach him first. Then Midori suddenly appears behind him and asks if there are really that many. The man freezes in shock, and Midori calmly says that if there are 15, this one should be the last. He points near the man's forehead, flips him over, and slams him into the roof. Midori contacts Rin with Raven's call, and she answers right away, saying she's arrived and no Awakeners are nearby. Then she adds something unexpected. Someone else had already shown up. Midori stays quiet, waiting for the rest. Rin explains it was Heitani, the S-rank poison user. He came for Kannagi and got completely crushed. Midori looks toward the rooftop where Heitani is sprawled out, mouth hanging open, and wonders what on earth happened. A little later, they reach the protagonist's house. Grinning, Midori praises him and admits he never thought the protagonist would beat an S-rank hunter. Then he quickly asks if the poison got him. MC rubs his cheek and gives a small awkward reply. Both he and his mother are okay. Hinaki folds his arms and reminds him that without Valentine, he wouldn't have survived the night. At her name, Valentine groans tiredly. Hinaki gives her credit anyway. Solving it all in 5 seconds is impressive. Valentine shrugs and says it wasn't hard. Since the poison maker was right there, she just took some blood samples and made the antidote. Midori lets out a breath, apologizes for arriving late, and tells him he's already set up protection against the many groups now targeting him because of today's video. Still trying to catch up, Kannagi asks the one thing bothering him most. Was Heitani lying about being Midori's ally? Midori immediately says yes. Lots of people use his name for their own gain. With that cleared up, he turns to Rin and asks if she's done. Right on cue, she appears beside him and says all the damage has been fixed. The protagonist stares at his restored house, shocked to see the window and backyard wall back to normal. Smiling, Midori suggests they go inside and talk about the protagonist's future. MC stands there, caught between excitement and worry. The next day, his mother sees him off as a car waits outside. She asks if he's forgetting anything, but Kannagi tells her he's fine and worries too much. She can barely believe the boy she raised is really going to Midori's place. Still, Midori already promised her that he'll look after him and make him a great hunter. That promise fills the protagonist with excitement, though his mother still looks uneasy, trying not to show it. She hands him lunch and tells him to eat since he skipped breakfast. He doesn't really need it, but he takes it anyway. Then she asks Midori directly if her son will be in danger. Midori says yes without hesitation, and she admits Kannagi has struggled all his life, so trusting someone else with him is a huge step. Even so, as his mother, she can't stop worrying. Midori confidently promises to train MC until he has no weaknesses left. Hearing that, she finally agrees to entrust him to him. Once they're in the car, Rin, who's driving, asks Midori if he really should have made a promise like that when no one knows what lies ahead. Midori looks back through the mirror and sees Kannagi's mother still giving him last-second advice. She tells him how to wash his clothes, and reminds him not to sleep naked or he'll catch a cold. Seeing all that worry, Midori quietly hardens his resolve to do his best. Meanwhile, the protagonist fights back his emotions and says his final goodbye. Just before getting into the car, his mother reminds him to come home for New Year's. As they finally drive off, Midori asks if Kannagi is okay. MC admits he had to hold his feelings in pretty hard. Midori leans back and tells him to do whatever he wants, eat or get some rest. The protagonist glances over and notices the lunch boxes his mom packed beside him. He opens one, still thinking about what she said. When he lifts the lid, his gaze falls on a tiny good luck note placed on top of the pork cutlet. That small message hits him harder than he expected. For a second, he thinks about everything his mother has done for him. Grateful and close to tears, he starts eating. Rin and Midori look at each other but say nothing, letting him have the moment as the car keeps moving. When they arrive, Kanagi is stunned by the anti-prophecy headquarters. Midori greets him and says only a small number of awakeners are ever allowed inside. That makes the whole thing feel even more real, and MC is briefly overwhelmed by what he's stepping into. Inside, a man by the window watches them arrive. Without turning around, he tells the others the new members are here. A girl with a blank expression asks if this is really about the newcomer. A young man says it's not often they get a new ally. But another man standing nearby stays doubtful and says they should first see if the newcomer is really worthy of joining anti-prophecy. Outside, Kanagi stands there for a moment, still trying to take it all in. He starts wondering what the anti-prophecy unit really is, and whether it has anything to do with Ichihara Guild. Noticing his confusion, Rin apologizes for not telling him sooner. She explains she couldn't say much in front of his mother because it's classified a top national secret. That lands harder on him than he expected. As they head in, Midori says they should take his bags to the dorm first. Rin offers to help, but Kanagi says he can carry them himself. Right then, a voice suddenly tells them to wait, making the protagonist flinch. When he looks up, he sees the young man from before above them. The man says he'll be the one to explain everything. Then he dives in with a powerful kick aimed at MC. The protagonist throws up his arms and blocks it, but the impact cracks the ground under him. The shock runs through his whole body, yet he stays on his feet. The man looks impressed and gives him a quick word of praise. Caught off guard, Kanagi asks who he is. The man steps back, drops lightly to the ground, and introduces himself as Hanada Hikotaru, a member of the anti-prophecy unit and now his comrade. Before he can even process that, Hanada makes it clear he's here to explain everything. Midori doesn't look bothered at all. He casually asks Rin for tea, and she pours him a cup while the fight goes on. He watches calmly, then asks Hanada what exactly he's doing. Hanada says it has two goals: introduce Kanagi to the anti-prophecy unit and test what he can do. That answer only makes the protagonist more unsure about what kind of test this really is. Without another word, Hanada fires off another fast kick. MC blocks again with both arms, holding his ground. Even while attacking, Hanada starts explaining how the anti-prophecy unit began. Kanagi listens, but he has a hard time believing Hanada plans to explain everything while fighting him. In the middle of it, Hanada pauses just long enough to ask his name. He answers right away, Minato. Midori, still calmly drinking his tea, thinks about how many times the protagonist has been tested, first by the academy, then by Midori himself, then by an S rank, and now this. He turns to Rin and wonders if Kanagi is always going to be judged like this. Rin calmly says it can't be helped. MC is the talent Midori personally found. Hanada keeps throwing kick after kick, and MC keeps blocking them with his hands. At one point, Hanada asks him what a hunter's role is. He answers at once. A hunter's job is to destroy the monsters that come out of dimensional cracks. Harna gives him a thumbs up and says that's right. He compares it to pest control, then suddenly drops low and asks a new question. What dangers exist outside dimensional cracks? The question throws Kanagi off. He asks Harna what he means by other dangers. Harna's face turns more serious, as he says the world has threats even worse than dimensional cracks. He brings up events like the Pandemonium 10,000 Demons Castle from 10 years ago and the Great Outbreak of Kyushu from 5 years ago. Kanagi recognizes them right away as massive dimensional break disasters. Before he can answer, Hanada rushes him again. Instinctively, the protagonist lifts his arms and blocks. Even so, the force sends him sliding back. Hanada praises him for remembering those public disasters, then says MC will learn much more about them once his academy training starts. He steadies himself, but before he can react, Hanada is suddenly above him. An axe kick comes crashing down. The protagonist barely dodges in time. Hanada's foot slams into the ground instead, and a nearby tree is split clean in half. The protagonist is left stunned by the power behind it. Hanada straightens up and keeps talking. Those events, including the Tower of Malevolence from 300 years ago, weren't just disasters. They were invasions from another dimension. MC struggles to believe it. This isn't just old history. It's still part of their world now. Hanada steps closer and says he doesn't understand why today's Awakeners seem weaker than the ones from the Tower era. Very few can match the founders, and that worries him. Kanagi finally asks the question on his mind. What are they supposed to do? Hanada answers firmly. That's why the anti-prophecy unit exists. People who can see these threats coming don't tell the public. They only warn the elite who can deal with them. And Hanada says those elites are the members of the anti-prophecy unit. Midori and Rin smile at that. He realizes their job is to stop those prophecies before they happen. Hanada then tells him that, starting today, he's officially one of them. Since he's the first person to block Hanada's kicks over and over, Hanada welcomes him and holds out his hand. Kanagi shakes it while Midori and Rin clap. Then Hanada calls out to the other Awakeners, who appear above the building without a word. He asks what they're going to do, but they only stare back before disappearing, which surprises Kanagi. Midori jokes that they vanish like villains, but Hanada says they probably just want to see things for themselves. Hanada tells Midori to leave the rest to him, and Midori heads off. Then Hanada helps the protagonist with his luggage and offers to show him his dorm room, which the protagonist thanks him for. That night, after settling in, MC keeps thinking about the organization he just joined, one built to deal with prophecies. He wonders if the founders faced the same kind of crisis during the Age of the Tower, and if he's now fighting against something already foretold. The thought makes him anxious, but then a voice tells him to stop worrying and just train. Startled, he turns and sees Hinoki and the other founders in his room. Kanagi quickly apologizes for not talking to them earlier, but Hinoki says they've already made their decision. As founders, they've decided to train him into the strongest awakener, just like Midori. With their help, he could become the strongest awakener in history, one of their disciples. Kanagi is shocked and asks if they really want him as a disciple. Hinoki nods and says yes, adding that it's a good idea. Then Hinoki jokes that it might turn into a battle royale between the founders, and he quickly asks them not to fight over him. Hinoki explains that things did start that way, but after watching him more closely, they changed their minds. Instead of using his body for their own goals, they became more interested in training him. Hinoki says that when the protagonist fought the poison user, he copied all of that person's moves, even if he couldn't use them at the same level. Still, he picks up the basics incredibly fast. Hinoki asks if Kanagi understands how important that is, saying it may be tied to his crest of nothingness. But even more than that, his learning speed is what makes him special. Hinoki says that talent may be greater than any gift the founders have. As Hinoki talks, MC feels tears gathering. He remembers all the disappointed looks from past trainers, the ones who said he seemed talentless. Until now, nobody had expected anything from him. It almost feels unreal, especially after being treated like garbage and bullied for failing the hunter qualification test 3 times. He remembers his classmates laughing and telling him to quit. People barely even remembered his name. No one believed in his future, and he'd gotten used to being ignored. But now, 2 of the most respected people, Midori and Hinoki, believe in him. That kind of recognition feels unbelievable, and Kanagi can't help wondering if he really deserves this happiness. For years, he could only look up to them from a distance. He never thought they'd ever believe in him. Seeing him tear up, Hinoki walks over, smiles, and rests a hand on his shoulder, telling him to stay calm. Then they reveal the truth. Their souls are inside him, especially while he sleeps. Because of that, he can enter a space beyond normal time and distance. So they set his training plan. Every afternoon, he works with the anti-prophecy unit. At night, the lessons continue in his dreams. Quiet, easy sleep is over. Still, he's ready for it. He accepts their help right away and says he'll follow their lead. Night passes and morning comes. In the bathroom, Hanada is at the sink washing his face when he notices him walk in. They exchange a quick greeting. The tired look on his face says it all. He admits he still hasn't gotten used to the brutal routine, and Hanada remembers struggling the same way when he first moved into the dorms. But then Hanada notices something strange. A strong aura is coming off him. That instantly grabs his attention. On instinct, Hanada throws a fast kick at him. He casually ducks, spits out the water in his mouth, and avoids it with no trouble. Then he walks off, saying he has no energy for this first thing in the morning, and he's going to the cafeteria. Hanada is left stunned. His kick was faster than yesterday, but it still got dodged like it was nothing. A little later in the cafeteria, Hanada finds a place to sit and walks over to a woman eating fruit, asking if he can join her. She gives a short yes. Hinoki sits across from her and motions for him to sit next to him. He remembers this woman was introduced yesterday as one of Hinoki's teammates. Still, she stays cold and formal, making it clear she doesn't really want him there. Even so, he greets her and tells her his name. She shuts that down right away. She doesn't care what his name is, and she won't bother remembering it. Pointing her fork at him, she says she'll learn his name only after he proves himself. Until then, training comes first, and he's going with her on a mission to stop a prophecy. That prophecy goes back to 1945, when a book was found in Antarctica, buried 3,000 meters under the ice. It was called the Book of Doom. The writing looked childish, but what it said was terrifying. 80 years later, the world would face a huge attack and a string of disasters. That warning was serious enough for the whole world to pay attention. During the drive, she asks him why people believe the book's predictions. He thinks about it for a second and glances at her, still not knowing her name. Before he can ask, she says names don't matter, and tells him to answer. He guesses it's because the prophecies are always right, but she quickly shoots that down. She mocks the answer and asks if he's stupid. If even one event from the Book of Doom happens, the world is finished. That shocks him. As they keep talking, he asks Hanada how many prophecies are in it. Hanada says there are about 200. That makes him wonder if the world is already doomed, but Midori explains that nearly 180 have already been stopped, leaving him amazed. Still trying to understand, he goes back to the same question. Why does the world trust the book so much? The woman explains that the Book of Doom was found by an explorer named Bernard Russell. When Bernard opened it, the first page said, "Hello, Bernard," then listed the exact time he found it. March 17, 1945, 11:35 a.m. on a sunny day. That was all the proof anyone needed. Hours later, they reached Tokyo's Sumida Ward, where a mid-level dimensional crack has opened. As they get close, guards stop them and say the area is restricted. They rush past so fast the guards can only stare. When he hesitates and asks if this is really okay, Hanada says yes. The woman starts explaining the bigger danger. Disasters like World War III, the dark side of the moon, the invasive pandemic, and the floating trees are all treated as emergency cases. One of the worst was the pandemonium outbreak, which Midori managed to stop. And while the Book of Doom is famous, it's only one of many grimoires hidden around the world. The Anti-Prophecy Unit was created to gather info, study those predictions, and act before they happen. Their work covers several threat ranks. Rank 3 can wipe out one or more regions, Rank 2 becomes a national crisis, and Rank 1 threatens the entire planet. As he listens, the truth starts to sink in. Alarmed, he asks if these missions are really all on them now. She calmly says that's exactly what comes with joining the Anti-Prophecy Unit. Soon after, Kisaragi and his team see them crossing the caution line and hurry over. Thinking they're civilians, Kisaragi tells them to turn back because it's too dangerous. She brushes him off and says today's prophecy is a Rank 3 case. She explains that the crack may look like a normal intermediate B rank gate, but it's actually a far worse Rank 3 disaster called Yellow Journal. She's sure it's about to grow. Right then, the crack starts expanding fast. Kisaragi turns, his eyes going wide in fear as the rift tears fully open, and monsters start flooding out. He immediately orders his squad to get ready. But the monsters crush them almost at once, cutting through his men with ease. Panic hits him as even B and C rank hunters fail to hold them back. Then he feels something even worse, the crushing pressure of a boss monster. When he sees the newcomers moving in, Kisaragi tries one more time to stop them. She ignores him, puts her hand on the ground, and casts Trismegistus. At once, spears burst up from below and skewer the monsters in a brutal instant. Hanada jumps in too. He tears across the field at high speed, dropping enemies one after another with clean, controlled strikes. Kisaragi can only stare. He thought his S-rank strength was impressive, but these two are on another level. He has no idea who they are. Then the woman tells Kisaragi to fall back. To them, he's the civilian here. His eyes drop to the mark on her hand, and he freezes. They aren't random fighters, they're government agents. Before he can think any further, a giant hand bursts out of the crack and tears it wider. A massive beast steps through, Jilia Ulner, a monster beyond S-rank giving off crushing pressure. The woman rushes at it without hesitation. Kisaragi yells for her not to be reckless, but she doesn't stop. The two of them attack together without fear. Hanada fires off a string of kicks at the beastman, then realizes in shock that they do nothing. Its anti-physical armor blocks the hits completely. He has to pull back as it lunges at the woman. She quickly gathers energy for a counter, but Kanagi suddenly appears between them and catches the attack with his bare hand. The beastman explodes from the impact. Everyone is stunned. When the shock clears, Hanada realizes it was a penetration shock. But the real surprise is this. Kanagi just killed an S+ rank monster in one hit. Hanada can tell his strength has jumped like crazy overnight. The woman calls out that he didn't need that much force, but he already knows the best way to beat something with high physical defense is to destroy it from the inside. He learned that from Wontak, the Fist Saint, who taught him the basics of penetration attacks the night before. After that, Kanagi looks at the girl and says, since he saved her, the least she can do is tell him her name. She lights up and says her name is Akane. There isn't time to enjoy the moment. Hana turns back to the fight, boosts his body, and charges the next wave coming from the crack. Akane follows with her own attack, coating the monsters in liquid mercury before blowing it up with Mercurius Reject. Together, they push ahead, now sure that just like Kanagi said, attacking from the inside works much better. Ready to keep going, Akane signals Hanaod, and both of them charge straight for the crack. Behind them, Kisaragi can only watch in disbelief. He knows the world inside that crack is a different realm full of unknown danger. Going in there is insane. But before he can stop them, they jump through the crack without hesitation, leaving him surrounded by dead rank monsters. One thought hits him. These two must belong to that rumored secret group. Inside the dimension, a huge swarm of monsters is waiting. Akane raises a hand and notes they're the same kind as the ones outside. Then she creates a storm of mercury spears that pins the monsters down in an instant. As he runs, Kane watches her technique and sees how powerful she really is. Now he understands why she's called the Anti-Prophecy Unit's best area fighter. After clearing more enemies, Akane faces a giant bear monster. Just as she's about to attack, Hanada jumps in first. The bear swings its claws at him. Hanada avoids the swipe by springing onto the roof. From there, he rains down kicks from every side. Kanagi watches, impressed by how easily Hanada moves, and lets out a small laugh, then suddenly freezes. He charges the bear and copies the same rapid kick combo. He asks Hanada if it looked like his move. Hanada is stunned, then grins. After bringing the monster down, they keep moving. Akane realizes the deeper they go, the fewer monsters they find. Soon, they arrive at a huge arena-like space. Then a crushing presence fills the area, warning them that something big is coming. A giant Minotaur warrior lands right in front of them. It's completely furious. This is the boss, a blind Minotaur with triple S rank power. Hanada and Kanagi are caught off guard by how huge it is. Akane, though, stays calm and asks if this is really the boss. At once, countless spears pour out from the portal. Akane tells the others to use their strongest attacks. She says she'll finish it herself. Hinata immediately starts gathering energy. In the back, Kanagi watches both of them in awe. Still, he feels their attacks may not be enough. Hinata is surprised that the protagonist doubts their best shot. Even under a storm of magic, the beast swings its huge weapon. The blow smashes the ground, opening a crater and sending shockwaves through the arena. When the dust clears, they stare in shock. The monster took their strongest attacks without a scratch. They get ready to fight again, but as Kanagi braces himself, he hears someone praising Akane's talent. He knows that voice right away. It's Killik, the spirit of his founder. Killik, an alchemist, says Akane has purity, speed, and amazing power, so it would be a waste for her to die this young. He says Akane did all she could, but this minotaur is far stronger than she guessed. Its physical resistance is a full 100. Worried, Kanagi asks what he should do, and Killik just laughs. Meanwhile, Hinata and Akane keep struggling against the boss. They realize they should have brought someone stronger with magic. Akane looks at MC and is shocked by the strange power coming off him. MC has handed control of his body to Killik. Using Kanagi's body, Killik casts Mercurius on the Minotaur's legs. The spell locks its lower body in place. Akane is left speechless. She's shocked that he used a skill like hers, and used it in a way that pinned the monster down. Killik turns to Akane and bluntly calls her a fool. He tells her she's too rigid and still hasn't learned to control matter in all three forms, which a true alchemist must do. While saying that, he floods the Minotaur's whole body with mercury. Soon the metal starts leaking from its mouth. Then he casts a boiling spell. The mercury inside heats up fast, cooking the beast from within as toxic vapor spreads out. The air gets hard to breathe, and Akane stares in amazement. Instead of overpowering the monster, Killik used temperature to break it. The Minotaur twists in pain as its body burns from the inside. While finishing the spell, Killik casually tells the protagonist he wants Akane as his student. The protagonist brushes it off like a joke. At last, the boiling mercury destroys the Minotaur, and it collapses dead. With that, the day's mission, beating the boss of a level 3 prophecy, ends in success. Akane can only stare, unable to process what she just saw. The technique MC used should only belong to an awakener living inside a crest. That means MC must be in the same class as Hiko, but he also used alchemy on her level. Still shaken, she demands to know who Kanagi really is. He just smiles and holds out his hand, introducing himself. Annoyed but curious, Akane reluctantly shakes it and says she'll remember him. Seeing the protagonist earn Akane's respect makes Hinata smile. Outside, Kisaragi and his men are still waiting when the dimensional crack suddenly starts to close. Just before it seals, the three of them jump out. Kanagi asks if the mission is done, and they tell him all that's left is reporting to headquarters. As they talk about what comes next, Kisaragi walks up and thanks them for saving his team. He says he won't ask who they are or what happened inside. Akane thanks him and tells him to mention the emblem in his report. That should explain things to the higher-ups. As the trio leaves, Kisaragi says he'll help them if they're ever in trouble. Akane turns back and says they probably won't meet again, so he should return to normal life. Hearing that, Kisaragi understands the truth. They're just civilians to him, living in a world he can't reach. On May 11th, in En Prefecture Village, a red streak flashes through the streets. One guard spots it, but can't tell what it was. Then a huge roar tears through the village. Back at Anti-Prophecy headquarters, the trio gets out of the car, and Akane reminds them to write their report. But Hinata gets a message. They've been called to the laboratory right after the mission. Curious, they head to the Anti-Prophecy HQ lab. Two people are already there, one on the stage, the other sitting in the stands, saying in a cold voice that Akane took quite a while to beat a rank 3 disaster. Kanagi recognizes him right away as the red-haired guy from earlier. Akane gets mad at his attitude since he talks like he's the boss when he isn't. Hinata quickly cuts in and asks what Director Kurihara wants with them. The man on the stage is the director himself. Once everyone settles, he starts a video from the analysis team. It shows a glowing red-hot chunk of charcoal. The director says it's a prophecy grimoire found in a volcanic area and studied ever since. Kanagi wonders how anyone could read a grimoire in that condition, but the director adjusts his glasses and says AI and X-rays pulled out part of the data. Most of it is still unclear, but one prophecy was readable and it directly mentions Japan. Everyone is stunned, Akane especially, because this is a prophecy they've never seen before. The director explains that anti-prophecy research gathers data from all over the world, so finding a totally unknown prophecy is rare. This case is different. The red-haired man understands at once. They're the 4 being sent to investigate. The director says he's right. This mission would usually go to the regular team, but they're unavailable. Kanagi then realizes that's why Midori wasn't there when they got back. The director orders them to leave at once and says the rest of the details will be sent by email. MC is shocked they got another mission so fast, but the red-haired man tells him he'll get used to it. He clenches his fists, feeling something much bigger is coming. This time, the whole world may be at risk. Kanagi slams a hand on the table, stands up, and declares that he and his 3 subordinates will take the mission. Kanagi is clearly annoyed to see him acting like the boss again. As they leave, the director warns them to be careful, since they still don't know how serious this mission is. Even if the prophecy starts, they must wait for the main force before doing anything extreme. In the car, Kanagi can't shake his unease about the mission ahead. From the front seat, Suo tells them to get some sleep, pointing out that the protagonist just finished his first mission. Akane refuses on pride alone, and says he has no right to order her around. To her surprise, Hinata and MC agree right away and fall asleep almost instantly. Akane tries hard to stay awake, but the long night wears her down, and she finally falls asleep too. Later, the car stops. Akane wakes up and realizes the vehicle is empty. Panicked, she rushes out and finds the others on a cliff, staring at a strange glow below. What she sees leaves her speechless. A giant magic circle covers the ground, far bigger than they imagined. Hinata instantly understands how bad this is. The prophecy is almost complete. Huge crystals hold trapped skeletons rising from the ground, and the sight chills everyone. They may already be too late. These skeletons are the 23 villagers from the report. Suo says it reminds him of a case from long ago. 30 years ago, the Wakayama mansion vanished, and a dimensional rift nearly opened. As he says that, the giant pillar in the middle of the magic circle starts bursting with energy. Seeing it, Suo tells them to move. Hinata draws his sword and asks what they're supposed to do, and Suo says they have to stop it. Akane quickly reminds him that the director told them to wait for orders. Before they can argue more, a huge aura rises behind them. They turn and see Kanagi wrapped in powerful energy, already ready to fight. At once the group realizes he feels even stronger than before. Suo doesn't look worried at all. With a grin, he jumps forward and tells the others to keep up. They all race after him, though Akane warns him not to be reckless. As they rush toward the magic circle, Hinoki and the mage catch a scent in the air, one they know all too well from many times before. Then the ground starts shaking hard. A giant hand suddenly bursts out from under the earth. Hinoki's eyes go wide. He finally knows that smell. It's the odor of a forbidden technique. This is the prophecy written in the Book of Scorching Heat. Hinoki explains that during the Epsi period, an awakener named Bandu Shijima, leader of the Dark Magus, carried out a massacre. He was later killed by the Onmaigakunis, but an entire village was dragged into the disaster with him. Shijima gathered the blood of the dead villagers and used it to make a magic circle, so he could come back 1,000 years later. His goal was simple: eat everyone and rule the world as a demon king. Before dying, he left a forbidden method, showing how the living would be sacrificed to revive him. Now, in the present, Shijima has returned as a boss of unknown rank. His purpose is obvious: to complete the Scorching Heat prophecy. He looks at his hands and frowns. This revival gave him far less power than he expected, so he wonders if the ritual didn't get enough sacrifices. Looking around, he laughs to himself. After 1,000 years, this place has barely changed. Then he spots the anti-prophecy unit coming and grins wildly, thinking more sacrifices have arrived. Using dark arts, he casts Plate of Yin and triggers a huge blast under the charging squad. Kanagi watches in horror as Hinata and Akane are swallowed by the explosion. But when the dust clears, both of them are fine. The protagonist's face tightens when he sees another dark circle appear under where they landed. It is the Dark Art Death Realm. Hundreds of spirits pour out, their hands grabbing at Hinata and Akane. They fight to break free, and quickly realize Shijima is far stronger than they thought. As he watches his spell work, he suddenly feels someone behind him. Kanagi going in for a sneak attack. Shijima dodges with ease, weaving past every hit, then mocks MC for being an amateur before casting Plate of Yin right under him. The ground explodes, but Shijima is stunned. When Kanagi comes out unharmed, he fires back with Thunderbolt Hadad, but Shijima blocks it with his own dark power. Even so, he's impressed the protagonist picked that skill. Then from the smoke, Suo appears behind Shijima and uses Chrysanthemum, sending a storm of blades at him. Shijima is surprised, but he avoids them easily by leaping into the air. While he's still airborne, Suo uses another spell, making it clear he never expected a weak move like that to finish Shijima. He slams down his weapon and activates Autumn, bringing down a rain of knives. Shijima just smiles and calls it nothing but falling lights. Then his hand changes into a sword, and he attacks Suo. Suo blocks, but the impact throws him back. From that alone, Shijima figures he's probably the strongest in the group. Watching from the side, Kanagi feels like Shijima's power has no end. He's nothing like the enemies they fought before. He even feels stronger than the founders. As MC thinks that over, he hears his teammates shout from behind him. He turns and sees Akane and Hinata getting blasted by black art attacks. They break out of it and charge at Shijima, who is still clashing with Suo. Without slowing down, Shijima summons 3 skeleton demons to stop Akane and Hinata as they rush him. One appears in front of Hinata, and he kicks it, but to his shock it does nothing. These monsters are as tough as the minotaurs from before. Another skeleton demon steps in front of Kanagi and blocks his way. At the same time, Suo and Shijima keep trading blows, and Shijima taunts him, saying his allies won't be helping. The moment he says that, Suo cuts straight across Shijima's shoulder and says he doesn't need help. He points his blade at Shijima and warns him to back off, saying the only thing he trusts is his own strength. As blood runs from the wound, Shijima laughs like a madman and shouts that he needs no one either. He'll devour them all. Then he rushes Suo, who barely blocks the strike before it hits his body. While Suo strains against the attack, he hears someone call out behind him. It's Kanagi, charging straight at Shijima. Shijima is shocked, since he sent a demon to stop him. He glances back and sees the others still battling their own demons, while his lies split in half. Before he can react, Kanagi smashes him in the face with a heavy punch, dragging him across the ground. Even Siwo is surprised by that hit, and the protagonist tells him they should team up to beat Shijima. Siwo freezes for a second. MC and Akane hadn't even finished their own fights yet. MC already did and is now offering help. Still, his pride takes over and he flatly refuses. He insists he doesn't need anyone. He's enough on his own. Kanagi can't believe it, but before they can argue, Shijima suddenly closes the distance and unleashes Magatsu's breath, a powerful beam aimed at both of them. Siwo manages to block it, but he gets blasted away by the attack. He slams into a tree, his vision fading as he starts to black out. As he loses consciousness, he sees Hinoki and the mage standing before him in spirit form. Hinoki tells him he passed out, so they pulled him into his own mind. Even with pain tearing through his battered body, Kanagi forces himself up and begs them to send him back. He still has to fight. Before they answer, a deep commanding voice echoes through the space, telling him to stay out of the battle. Outside, Su is barely keeping up with Shijima's non-stop attacks. Shijima smirks and praises Su for thinking like him, fighting without relying on anyone, grinning with that same hunger to devour everything. Shijima puts all his power into one strike and smashes Su's sword in two. Stunned but fast, Su instantly summons another blade and swings, but Shijima bends backward and dodges with eerie flexibility. The more Su struggles, the more Shijima seems to enjoy it. Back in the spirit world, Kanagi watches the battle and hears Hinoki say Shijima is far beyond anything he can handle. The mage adds that Shijima's control is terrifying. If more humans had lived here, he might already have become a demon king. She warns that if Shijima takes the protagonist's life too, he'll grow even stronger and bring disaster to civilization. She says finding the grimoire was just luck. Then Hinoki asks MC to lend them his body so they can deal with this themselves. But to both of their shock, MC refuses. He apologizes, then says this isn't training anymore, this is real. He has to get past this wall by himself, just like he'll have to do in the future. With total resolve, he asks if they agree. The mage starts to protest, but Hinoki cuts her off with a laugh and tells Kanagi he's already won them over. He puts a hand on his shoulder and reminds him he said he would surpass the founders. Then he tells him to go, use everything he learned, and fight his own way. That lights a fire in the protagonist. He turns toward the battlefield and asks the founders to watch him. Then he sprints back into the fight where Shijima and Su are still clashing. Su is badly worn down, and the instant he opens his eyes, Shijima attacks again, launching him into the air. While he's still up there, Shijima prepares the finishing blow. Just as Su braces himself, someone catches him in mid-air. Kanagi grabs both him and his sword, then throws him down and away from Shijima's incoming beam. Su crashes to the ground, and Shijima turns back to MC in the air. He fires another Magatsu's breath at him, but freezes when Kanagi calmly uses Hinoki's one-handed sword style. With perfect focus, he cuts straight through the beam, then slices off Shijima's arm. Shijima is left speechless, unable to understand what just happened. Trembling with rage, he screams about who he is, but the protagonist coldly answers that he's the one who will surpass the founders. Watching from the spirit side, the mage asks Hinoki if MC can really beat the Dark Magus, but even he doesn't know. What he does know is that Kanagi isn't reckless. Hinoki suspects he learned something new while sleeping in the car on the way here. A big grin spreads across his face as he wonders if it's something even he can't understand. Su is just as stunned watching the protagonist move so smoothly. A moment ago he refused the protagonist's help, and now that same help just saved his life. Kanagi keeps pressing Shijima with non-stop strikes, forcing him to teleport back and answer with the Dark Art Pomegranate. A wave of energy shots rushes at MC. He tries to dodge but quickly sees they're tracking him. No matter how he moves, the blasts keep following. Then he remembers one of the founder's skills, Aftershock. He stomps the ground and raises a wall of stone in front of himself, stopping the attacks. Shijima is caught off guard but quickly fires another barrage. Kanagi uses the broken rock pieces to shield himself again. Seeing an opening, he combines two skills and flashes behind Shijima, but Shijima barely avoids the hit. He instantly counters with Plate of Yin and lands the blast on Kanagi. He takes the hit but absorbs most of it. Using a floating rock as a step, he launches himself back at Shijima, remembering the founder's lessons. Shijima dodges again, but the protagonist's mix of techniques leaves even him shaken. Watching from afar, the founders are stunned by how fast MC has grown and how fiercely he attacks, but Shijima still isn't done. With a dark stare, he uses his forbidden art and creates a giant skeleton through skeleton fusion. The massive creature towers over everyone, pouring out evil energy. Shijima smirks and says, "This is the end." The giant skeleton swings its huge hand at Kanagi as the founders shout for him to run, but he doesn't move. In that moment, he realizes that even at full power, he still can't beat Shijima. He needs more, something beyond his limits. Thinking back to Hinoki and the mage's training, he remembers Shining Flame, the one-handed sword style, the wave blade, and the different slashes Hinoki taught him. Combining both teachings, Kanagi pours shining flame into his hand and into his sword, turning it into a blazing blade. The mage and Hinoki stare in shock. The protagonist has done the impossible. MC grips his powered-up sword and gets ready. He just unlocked a move called Blazing Fire Cutting Blade. Without pausing, he rushes the giant skeleton and swings as Shijima stares in shock. Thinking back to Hinoki's sword lessons and the mage's magic, he pushes past both and wraps his blade in fire. One slash cuts through the skeleton from top to bottom and slices Shijima in half too. Everyone is stunned that he fused two magic skills like that. The alchemist founder is especially amazed. He calls the protagonist an irregular, shocked by how easily he swaps and combines different skills. He never thought the protagonist could fuse techniques so smoothly, and now he suspects there's even more hidden in him. Then the alchemist suddenly disappears, leaving Hinoki confused. Hearing that, the mage agrees. They may have badly underestimated Kanagi. For the first time, she wonders if raising someone like him is really a good idea. Hinoki, though, is thrilled and wants to see how far MC can go. He drops to the ground, worn out, then freezes when he sees Shijima's split body starting to rebuild itself from the blood. Enraged, Shijima growls that one hit to the head would have killed him. Dark power gathers in his hand as he forms a death ball and declares he'll finish it himself. Before he can, Su suddenly appears behind him and slashes his throat. Shijima loses his head before he can react. As the body falls, Su catches Kanagi, who is already blacked out. Holding him, Su drifts into an old memory. Long ago, his older brother carried him the same way. It was a freezing night under a bridge, and his brother promised to find food in the morning. As Suin started to fall asleep, they heard a big parade passing overhead. While others celebrated, they shivered below with empty stomachs. That memory reminds Suin why he chose to be alone. Shijima tried to use that loneliness against him. But looking at Kanagi now, Suin understands something. He isn't truly alone, and even if he were, he could still bear it. Then the barrier around them starts to crack. Akane and Hana rush in at once, panicking when they see the protagonist unconscious. After checking him, they realize he's only passed out. Hana then notices the barrier is breaking from the inside and warns they need to move fast. She asks what happens if all that energy blows outward. Seichu tightens his grip on his sword and says they'd all be crushed. Their only chance is to strike with everything they have and try to push it back. He sounds sure, but deep down he doesn't know if they can do it in their condition. Still, there's no other choice. As everyone gets ready, Kanz, still unconscious, suddenly raises his sword and pours energy into it. Seichu stares in disbelief. Inside MC's mind, Hinoki has taken over and is moving his body. When the barrier explodes, everyone fires off their strongest attack, while Hinoki uses his one-handed splitting cloud strike. Outside, a red-haired man runs toward the area with two others, and they warn him the barrier is about to break. A second later, it bursts open. The men think they're too late. Then a bright blue beam shoots from Kanagi's sword into the sky. The red-haired man watches in awe, recognizing it as a perfect sword technique with no hesitation. He's Sumakoto, captain of the anti-prophecy unit, and he wonders who pulled it off. Later, on a plane over Peru, Midori talks with Makoto and is amazed that the new recruits stopped the unknown prophecy. Back in Japan, Makoto stays on the call while dealing with a rank 1 prophecy that he says is far more dangerous than the last one. Instead of sitting inside the plane, Midori lounges on top of it, smiling as he thinks about how much the anti-prophecy unit has grown, even if he can't see it in person. But that mood ends fast when Makoto says the one who stopped it was him, the same him who joined only 2 days ago. Stunned, Makoto demands to know who the protagonist really is. Midori answers without hesitation. The protagonist is the one who will end all prophecies. They've been waiting for someone like him for a long time. Makoto isn't convinced and asks if that faith is really deserved. Instead of debating, Midori tells him to watch MC himself. Makoto then tells Midori to come back without him. Fighting an equal-level enemy is getting rough. Midori lets out a small laugh, gives a quick apology and turns back to the fight. Then Rin calls out with urgency. They're facing a massive prophecy, the super-rank boss of suicidal infection. Its name is Ishtam. As the monster charges in, Midori tells Makoto to hold on a little longer, then raises his hand and unleashes divine wind turbulence. At that same moment, Kanagi jolts awake in a hospital room and bolts upright with a shout. A nurse quickly calms him down and says he's finally awake. He has been asleep in the anti-prophecy infirmary ever since the mission ended. He realizes he must have simply blacked out. He slept so deeply that he never even reached the spatial realm to train with the founders. The nurse assures him he's okay, opens the curtain and tells him to call if he needs anything. As it parts, Kanagi sees Su nearby with his arms crossed, silently watching. That makes him wonder if Su stayed there the whole time. Looking around, the protagonist notices Akane and Hana aren't there. When he asks, Su says they're training because they felt useless in the last battle. Then Su calmly admits MC's strength was overwhelming. Hearing praise like that from him leaves MC stunned, but before he can respond, Su stands up and harshly asks who he really is. In under 2 days, the protagonist took down a rank 3 and even a possible rank 1 boss. He also used a fusion spell Su had never seen before. So Su presses him again, who is he really, and how can he become like him? Before Kanagi can answer, Makoto walks in. He asks if MC is the one he came for. He says yes, and Suo is stunned that his older brother showed up. Makoto walks right past Suo without much of a glance. Kanagi nervously asks if he really is Suo's big brother, and the instant he says it, Makoto draws his sword and swings it just inches from everyone. Suo and the protagonist are both caught off guard, but he dodges. He wonders if this is some kind of test. While Makoto is impressed that a trainee avoided his strike, Makoto says it was a test, and Kanagi passed. Then he introduces himself as Suo's captain and older brother Suo Makoto. That confirms it. Makoto really is Suo's brother. After a short pause, Makoto announces that because of MC's performance against the Rank 1 disaster, he'll be joining his squad for a while. MC is left speechless. Suo is even more shaken. Jealousy hits him hard. Even as Makoto's younger brother, he was never allowed into that squad. Makoto wastes no time and tells him to come with him for a briefing. Behind them, Suo clenches his fists until his knuckles bleed. Elsewhere, Akane and Hanada train harder than ever. Akane attacks with multiple weapons while Hanada works on defending against them. Even so, both know catching up to Kanagi feels almost impossible. While they keep at it, Midori suddenly walks in and cheerfully says he brought chocolates from Peru. To his surprise, they ignore the chocolates and rush over, asking how long he'll stay in Japan. When he says 1 week, they immediately beg him to train them during that time. They're not going to let Kanagi leave them behind without a fight. Midori didn't expect that much determination. He agrees, then asks about Suo and whether he wants in too. Right then, Suo arrives and says with total resolve that he'll join them as well. Meanwhile, Kanagi hurries after Makoto through the hall. Back in the training room, the group is surprised to see Suo that fired up too. He tells them the protagonist was personally chosen by his older brother to join the squad for now. That shocks Akane and Hanada. They realize just how far MC has come. Getting picked by Makoto is a huge deal, but Suo takes it as proof that he's still behind him and needs to get much stronger. At the same time in the hallway, he asks what this meeting is about, and Makoto says it's for their next mission. They leave tomorrow morning. Then Makoto suddenly stops and asks if the protagonist is close with his younger brother. Thinking back to their last fight when Suo lent him his sword, Kanagi quickly says yes. Even though Makoto acts cold, he secretly worries about Suo and just never shows it. Because of that, Suo wrongly thinks his brother hates him and doesn't care. The truth is, when Makoto visited before, he wasn't ignoring Suo, he just couldn't bear to look at his injuries. But Suo took it as rejection, and that pushed him to risk his life and grow stronger, just to earn Makoto's attention. Makoto, on the other hand, doesn't want Suo stronger, he just wants him safe. That painful misunderstanding is what drives Suo to surpass Kanagi, believing only then will his brother finally notice him. Someday, he even wants to beat Makoto. MC keeps asking, and Makoto finally admits he really does care about his little brother. He finds that genuinely sweet. Back in training, Suo explains everything, and Akane says it's hard to follow. For someone who talks about beating his brother and proving himself, he still clearly respects him. As she keeps sparring with Hanada, Akane says that deep down, Suo just wants his brother's attention. Hanada thinks that's kind of touching, but Akane's comment hits Suo the wrong way and makes him snap. At the meeting, Kanagi learns the squad's 3 main rules: move fast, keep attacking, and cover your weak points. In the Counterforce division, Makoto's team is known as the strongest in battle. It stays small, at least 7 members, but every one of them is elite. Their job is taking down rank 1 and higher threats. While the helicopter carries them to the mission, Jakaru jokes that 90% of the squad's strength comes from the captain, and everyone else is just backup. Since the protagonist is only filling in, nobody expects much from him. But while Jakaru talks, Kanagi is busy looking at his phone. Jakaru calls him out, and MC quickly apologizes, saying he needs to message his friends. Jakaru asks what kind of message he means. He is trying to contact the anti-prophecy group because the founders keep bugging him about it. While the others are training, his message finally arrives and it shocks all of them. Suo is the most upset, wondering what the protagonist was even thinking when he sent that. Right away, they bring it to Midori. He finds out the message has 3 different pieces of advice, with each one meant for a different person. The tips are so detailed and helpful that even Midori is impressed. Smiling, he holds out his hand and asks if they'll accept the advice or ignore it. They all take it as a challenge and agree. Suo especially is furious, feeling like Kanagi just rubbed salt in the wound. Back in the helicopter, Jakaru tells MC they've reached the target area. He looks out and sees a frozen mountain region covered in huge crystal spikes. Their target is a rank 1 prophecy called Frozen Earth, and it's spreading so fast it could freeze the whole planet. If nobody stops it, all life on Earth could be wiped out. Worse, the same disaster is happening in 17 places across several countries, including cities. Vice Captain Kashi explains the crisis and warns them they can't waste any time. The freezing is spreading faster than expected. Makoto takes command and orders everyone to jump from the rear hatch, since the helicopter can't go any farther safely. Before they move, he reminds them not to let any humans get hurt. To fire them up, he tells the squad to recite the 3 rules. They shout them together. At the back, Kanagi thinks about the last battle, when he ended up relying on Hinoki again. He decides to use this mission to get stronger and learn from the team. As the squad jumps, the protagonist vows to clear this rank 1 prophecy by his own power. At 10:17 a.m., they land safely. The cold is brutal, and even as an awakener, Jikaru somehow catches a cold and complains about it. Kashi says the temperature is much worse than the reports claimed. He adds that the area is huge and suggests they make camp halfway through. Makoto seems to think about that but says nothing. Then Kanegi asks Jakaru if frozen earth appears in any prophecy book. Jakaru says no. The anti-prophecy unit predicted it through their own special abilities. It's also the first time anyone in the unit has successfully found a rank 1 prophecy, which is why Makoto's squad got the mission. That answers MC's question, but Kashi notices he still looks uneasy. She tells him being nervous is better than getting careless, as long as he doesn't let it weigh him down. Jakaru puts a hand on Kanagi's shoulder, repeats Kashi's point, and reminds him he's with the anti-prophecy unit's best team. Kashi snaps at Jakaru for acting too casual, and he immediately apologizes. A second later, Jakaru raises his hand. His radar picked up enemies at 2 o'clock, about 200 meters away. Kashi accepts the report and disappears at once, then returns a moment later. She says there are 30 monsters ahead around S rank from the ice gargoyle race of the Tice tribe. Makoto instantly orders the squad to wipe them out. The team rushes in with perfect coordination, and Kanagi is stunned by how smoothly they move together. They're on a completely different level from trainees. Now seeing they're true elites, he asks if he can join in. Makoto allows it, brushing the enemy off as only S rank. With that, Kanagi bursts forward and kicks one in the head. To his surprise, the monster explodes and sprays sharp ice everywhere. As Kashi dodges an attack from a stronger-looking one, she warns the squad that some unusually dangerous monsters are mixed in. The protagonist answers by using his fire-cutting blade, blasting one apart with a burning strike. Jakaru is shocked to see him use a Fury Sword skill, and Kashi is impressed. At the same time, Makoto cuts through the rest with only a few easy swings. He notices MC's flaming sword and realizes that must have caused the blue beam he saw before. After the fight, the squad makes camp in the mountains and starts eating. During the meal, Kashi asks Jakaru what else his radar picked up. Jakaru says there are no boss-level threats within 10 kilometers. Kashi relaxes, saying they can stay the night there, but then notices Makoto and Kanagi are gone. Elsewhere, he sits by his own fire, trying to combine his spells like before. While he focuses, Makoto suddenly appears behind him and teases him for being so eager to train, nearly scaring him to death. Once the protagonist settles down, Makoto sits beside him and asks if this is his first time camping, and if he's having trouble. The protagonist says he's doing great. Then Makoto casually admits he just wants to go home and smoke. MC is stunned, but things get weirder when Makoto says he really wants to smoke his cat. MC completely misunderstands and thinks he means drugs. He immediately asks about the cat, and Makoto leans in close, pulls out his phone and shows him a picture. He asks what the cat's called, and Makoto says his name is Oribe. Looking at the photo, the protagonist notices how fierce the cat seems, but asks if Makoto really misses him. Makoto says no. Oribe scratches up his things, throws up everywhere, and is basically a little monster. Even so, Makoto admits the cat is still cute, just like his little brother Suo. Kanagi finds that comparison odd, but listens as Makoto quietly says he hopes he can talk with Suo like this someday. MC says he can't really relate since he's an only child, but maybe Makoto should try treating Suo the way he treats his cat. At that, Makoto smiles and agrees, then starts showing Kanagi videos on his phone. He is shocked to see the captain babying the cat. Makoto laughs and wonders if acting like that is really okay. Then he gently asks the protagonist if they can train together. The protagonist honestly doesn't want to, but before he can answer, Kashi finds them and tells them to come back, since they need to leave early tomorrow. Makoto agrees right away. That night, while the squad sleeps, a mysterious person heads into the frozen land, dressed way too lightly for the cold. When someone stops him, he says he's there to fulfill the prophecy of that place. Holding a small book, he calls it an important mission. This lone awakener is heading for the same mountain as Makoto's squad. Back at camp, Kanagi falls asleep and starts training in his dream with the founders. This time, the lesson is archery to sharpen his focus. Under Margit's instruction, he practices with a heavy bow. Seeing him sweat, she asks if keeping that concentration steady hurts. During the lesson, Hinoki loudly complains that it isn't sword day, but the page shuts him down, reminding him yesterday was his turn. Even with all that noise, Margit is impressed. MC stays focused. His concentration is far better than it was at the start. Kanagi says he's on a mission with an incredible team, and that pushes him to do his best. Fixing his eyes on the target, he lets the arrow fly and nails the bullseye perfectly. Margit is amazed. He drops to the ground in relief. Margit tells him to remember that feeling and ends the session. The moment training is over, Hinoki lights up. He instantly pulls his sword and tells the protagonist to get up for sword practice. But before they begin, MC wakes up to his squad calling him. It's time to move. Before they leave, Makoto says today they're taking down the boss tied to the prophecy. As they push deeper in, they run into another wave of monsters, a flock of blue birds. When the squad charges them, the founders inside Kanagi remark that this mission should be easy with a team this strong. But the mage notices one of the older founders looks uneasy, like something about this fight feels wrong. After a hard clash, the squad clears out the monsters and opens the way ahead. Makoto tells Jikaru to scout farther. Jakaru reports a major boss about 2,000 meters away and it's coming straight at them. Then he adds the worst part, it'll reach them in 10 seconds. A huge figure rushes in almost instantly, the unknown god, Kalamitz, wearing a wild, crazed grin. Her presence is nothing like the monsters they fought before. Makoto orders everyone to attack at once. The squad moves perfectly together. Jakaru binds her while Kashi cuts in from every angle, but none of it works. Their combo lands cleanly, yet Kalamitz takes no damage at all. Just as she's about to strike back, she senses something dropping from above. It's Kanagi coming down with a heavy sword slash. Remembering Hinoki's lesson on the straight vertical cut, he opens with his strongest swing. The protagonist strikes with his fire-coated blade, launching a blast of flame at the boss, but to his surprise, it does nothing. The boss swings back at once and slams Kanagi into the ground. Hearing that crash, Jakaru thinks MC is dead, but he survives because an ice crystal breaks his fall. Still fighting, Kashi finally understands why this boss is ranked number 1. She looks to Makoto. Now everything rests on him, and he draws his sword. At the same time, Jakaru binds Kanagi and pulls him out, saying they'll only get in Makoto's way. As the others fall back, the boss swings at Makoto with full power. The blow sends out a huge shockwave, and he fears for Makoto's safety. Then Makoto stops the blade just before it can touch him. The boss attacks again, and once again Makoto blocks it with ease. He answers with one brutal slash and cuts off her arm. Hinoki is blown away by that move and says he wants to try it too. Kanagi, already worried, flat out refuses to let Hinoki take his body. Facing the injured boss, Makoto says he wanted his team to learn by fighting someone this strong, but now he's ending it. Hearing that, the squad quickly puts up a barrier around themselves. Makoto pours his red dragon power into his sword, covering it in raging flames. Then he adds crimson light and fires a giant inferno at the boss, blasting away nearly half her body. Kanagi is stunned. Makoto just used a sword flame attack like his, only far stronger. Without that barrier, the whole team might have burned up. The protagonist quietly says sorry to the boss, saying it's his job to protect the world. Then suddenly meows, making everyone cringe. Watching closely, MC realizes Makoto's style is nothing like Hinoki's. He's on a whole different level. Amazed, Kanagi starts wanting to learn from him. Then Makoto follows with one more slash and splits the boss in two, but a flash of light suddenly cuts across the field. In the next instant, Makoto's arm is gone. He turns in shock and sees a hole through Jakaru's body. He looks around in panic as the truth hits him. One after another, his teammates are ripped apart, dropping dead in front of him. When Kanagi sees Jakaru falling, he runs to him, but Jakaru uses his last strength to shove him away. The protagonist stumbles back and can only watch his teammates collapse. Even at death's door, Jakaru is full of regret. His radar never caught the attack, and that failure cost them everything. As he falls, he apologizes to Makoto and hits the ground, hoping someone at least saw where the shot came from. Kashi survives, but several others are pierced by the same beam. Holding his severed arm, Makoto shouts for everyone to hide in the terrain. It's a skill attack. No one hesitates. They run. While retreating, Kashi calls to a fallen teammate and tells him to move. But he hesitates, worried about Makoto's condition. The attack that took Makoto's arm can't be blocked, not even by barriers, because it destroys anything it touches. Another beam flies at Makoto, but he barely avoids it by jumping up. Kashi watches in fear, as the boss keeps attacking while her body heals. Knowing they need to finish her in one big strike, she turns to Kanagi and finds him on his knees, frozen. Staring at his dead teammates, MC weakly asks Valentine if she can bring them back. Valentine looks ashamed as she answers she can't revive the dead. Kanagi goes quiet, takes a breath, and calls on all the founders. He admits he wanted to handle this himself, but now he knows he needs their help again. Hinoki immediately steps up and takes over his body. Meanwhile, Makoto studies the attack and realizes it got past Jakaru's radar. Since that radar only covers 3 kilometers, the shot had to come from farther away. That one hit killed Jakaru and took Makoto's arm, which means the hidden attacker is at least as strong as he is. Refusing to waste his team's sacrifice, Makoto pushes past his limits and draws out even more power. Using everything he has, he senses a point over 3 kilometers away through all the obstacles. Gripping his sword, he thinks of the dead and uses that pain as fuel. Makoto charges his blade with crimson light and releases a massive wave of fire tearing through everything ahead. At last, it exposes the hidden enemy, the same lone boy who came here earlier. He's impressed Makoto found him, just like he expected from the strongest squad's captain. But Makoto is shocked because his attack gets swallowed whole. The boy says if Makoto still had his left arm, that strike might have killed him, then uses a spell called Darkness to form dark orbs around himself. As he walks toward Makoto, he fires one of those orbs to kill him. Makoto answers with a swing that raises an ice barrier. Then he vanishes in a blink and appears behind the boy, aiming a slash at his neck. Before Makoto can react, that same beam fires again and blows away part of his torso. The boy stays untouched and calmly says he saw Makoto's move coming. Then he adds that Makoto is the one close to death. That sets Makoto off. With what little strength he has, he rushes in and swings, but the boy slips aside easily and drives a hard kick straight into Makoto's wound. But Makoto planned for that. Using the opening, he smashes the boy with the back of his sword and sends him crashing down. As he watches, Makoto starts to wonder why the boy stopped using that beam after only a few shots. It's insanely strong, but maybe he can't keep using it. Then Makoto figures it out. The spell can't be fired non-stop. When it comes to stamina, they may be even. The boy lands on his feet after the crash and confirms that guess, but reminds Makoto they're not equally injured. Makoto has lost an arm and half his body. Even so, Makoto rejects the idea of being at a disadvantage. He remembers the 3 rules of the Makoto squad and draws strength from them. Resolve fills him as he prepares to fight to the end. He coats himself in burning electric fire, sealing his wounds shut, and roars out the squad's 3rd rule, overcome your weakness. Then he unleashes Scarlet Blaze. The boy narrows his eyes and realizes Makoto is burning his own life to get stronger. So he does the same, feeding his darkness spell with his life force. Makoto, calling on the spirits of his fallen comrades, stares his enemy down and warns him not to disrespect his squad. Back with Kanagi as he calls on the founders, his hair turns white and Hinoki takes over. The surviving squad members, still trying to escape, are stopped by the boss as she regenerates her arms. Kashi realizes she can't handle this alone, so she calls to Kanagi, still at the rear. To her, it looks like his spirit broke after seeing everyone die, which would make sense for someone who only recently joined. But then the protagonist stands up. In a flash, he rushes in and kicks the boss so hard she goes flying. Elsewhere, Makoto and the boy keep trading blows, and Makoto fights with only half a sword. He unleashes Scarlet Light, and the opponent barely avoids it by leaning aside. Even after dodging, he starts to worry. Makoto's flames should have been erased by darkness, yet they keep coming back and hitting him. On top of that, there's a limit to how much darkness he can control by hand, and he's nearing it, so he fires a swarm of dark orbs at Makoto. Makoto dodges them fast, finds an opening, and slices off the boy's arm. Now the tide is turned, but even one-armed. The boy jumps in and slams his knee into Makoto's wounded side. Makoto falls in pain as the boy walks up and says, losing an arm means nothing, especially when Makoto still has a hole in his stomach. Then he reveals something worse. He says he expected all of this. From the first strike, he knew Makoto would close the distance. He even praises Makoto for always choosing the best move without wasting time. But that, he says, is also Makoto's weakness. He's too easy to read. That's why he'll lose. Then he reaches into his bag and pulls out a book, claiming Makoto's defeat was written in it from the start. Makoto's eyes widen when he recognizes the Book of Doom. The boy opens it and reveals the truth. If one group exists to stop prophecies, then of course another exists to make them happen. Makoto is stunned. He never knew such a group existed. Then the boy reveals who he is. One of the 12 apostles of the apocalypse, the 12th of darkness, the one chosen to fulfill the prophecy. Still shocked, Makoto asks why he wants to bring ruin to the world. The boy flips through the book, smirks, and asks if telling him would earn forgiveness. That mockery enrages Makoto, and he swings with everything he has. The strike nearly cuts through the boy's shoulder. Makoto believes he can still win. The boy seems low on mana, and his body is reaching its limit. Makoto calls on the red dragon form. Sure, this will finish the fight. But the guy, even with his shoulder almost cut off, is still standing and says Makoto is the one who's done. Then he pulls out a potion and drinks it. A bright flash bursts out, blinding Makoto. Then a heavy punch comes flying through the light. Makoto is slammed straight to the ground. When the dust clears, he can't believe it. Every wound he gave that guy is gone, and his enemy is back at full power. The guy says that potion is actually an artifact that fully restored him. Even with one arm, Makoto fires Scarlet Light again and sends a slash wave at him. The guy breaks it apart with darkness orbs and fires back right away, leaving Makoto stunned. That artifact is so broken it's usually kept under national control, so no normal group should have one. Then the guy drives a kick into Makoto's stomach wound and drops him to the ground to die. Seeing Makoto beaten, he finally lets out a relieved breath. At that moment, Makoto thinks back to his childhood and to the people who fought beside him. Even now, he reaches for his sword. He also remembers Kanagi talking about treating his brother like his cat, and that puts a smile on his blood-covered face. He grabs the sword again, but just as he moves to strike, a beam of darkness hits him and cuts off the hand holding it. Certain it's over, the guy says his final goodbye to Makoto. But before he can finish him, someone tears through the crystal behind him. It's Kanagi, with all the founders backing him up, ready to punish the man who made their disciple cry. Makoto sees MC and worries at first, but then he feels something else coming from him. The guy notices it too. He no longer feels like an easy target. He feels dangerous, uneasy now. The guy warns him not to move and threatens to kill Makoto. Before he can do anything, his arm is sliced off in a flash. He's stunned and can't even tell what just happened. Kanagi only swung his sword from far away, and the force was so strong it even dulled the blade. The founders are shocked that one swing wore it down that much. Then the alchemist founder steps in and makes several new weapons for the protagonist. With nothing but revenge in his eyes, Kanagi tells every founder to go all out on the guy. Meanwhile, the guy regenerates his arm completely. That surprises Hinoki. The mage founder says it's reversal, a skill she never thought a modern awakener would have. She guesses the artifact is healing him over and over until its power runs out. While she explains, MC fires an arrow straight into the guy's head. He never saw it coming. But the wound closes up at once. One founder asks how they're supposed to kill him. The mage says they have to keep killing him until he finally stays dead. The guy casts his darkness spell while Kannagi knocks another arrow. When he lets it fly, the darkness tries to stop it, but the arrow punches through and hits the guy in both the chest and head. The archer founder taunts him, asking if he really thought his arrows could be stopped. The guy heals again and fires a swarm of darkness orbs back. Using the founder's evasion skills, Kannagi slips past them and rushes in at once. He kicks the guy right in the face, grabs his hand, and slams a palm strike into him. One founder points out that the guy can't use his annihilation beam when his own orbs block his sight. That makes things easier for them, since his attacks are simpler to dodge. Kannagi then smashes a heavy blow into the guy's gut and sends him crashing down. The founders start wondering how many times they have to watch this same man die and come back. Then the protagonist heads over to Makoto. Barely hanging on, Makoto asks if he's really MC. MC says no. The founders are using his body like heroic spirits. Using Valentine's healing power, preservation, Kannagi starts restoring Makoto's arms. While healing him, he says they're short on time and need to move fast. As he leaves, Makoto realizes it's the founders controlling him. Not far away, the guy stands back up, shocked that his spells are being dodged and beaten so easily. The protagonist doesn't let him think and attacks with a spear, driving it right through his heart. The guy keeps getting struck down again and again, never getting a second to recover. One founder asks the mage if leaving the spear in his heart will stop the healing. It doesn't. The spear slips through and the guy starts regenerating again. As he comes back, Kannagi drops a crushing kick from above and smashes him into the ground once more. MC starts wondering which part would grow back first if they destroyed his whole body. This time, the guy starts regenerating from his hand. By the time his body is restored, he's panting hard and clearly wearing out. He's getting torn apart over and over, but he still refuses to be stopped by a kid. So he decides to kill Makoto and run. But when he rushes over, Kannagi is already there, sitting beside Makoto and guarding him. With a crazy smile, he tells him he's too late. Then Hinoki takes over the protagonist's body and using his sword style cuts the guy completely into pieces. Even after being destroyed like that, the guy still isn't afraid to die because he thinks he's carrying out prophecy. But facing something as terrifying as Kannagi starts to shake that resolve. As he regenerates again, he tries to steady himself by remembering his mission and reaches into his bag for another artifact before fear can take over. MC cuts off his arm before he can use it, but the artifact falls away and creates a huge golden prison around Kannagi, the sand cage of time. At the same moment, the guy's healing runs out, and this time his arm doesn't grow back. Relieved, he thinks he barely survived. The founders see the cage and get worried, especially since the guy's regeneration is almost finished. Outside the cage, the guy says not even his darkness can break it, so he has no way to kill him from inside. Looking nervous, he says he's leaving, but before he can finish, Hinoki shouts for him to look carefully. The guy suddenly feels a huge presence behind him and turns to see Makoto standing again, still healing as he rises. So how is Makoto this absurdly strong? It goes back to his childhood, when he trained under the best Midori. Makoto even beat Midori in a sword match, so Midori told him to find a better teacher. Following the advice of the world's strongest awakener, Makoto searched for top masters everywhere, but he outgrew each one. Swordsmanship, magic, speed, it didn't matter. None of them could keep up for even a month. One teacher finally sent him to the strongest swordsman they knew then, Hinoki Ichika, Hinoki's little sister. Ichika became Makoto's last master, and he trained with her for about 3 years. During one lesson, Makoto asked her about a sword technique from a book called Indomitable. Even Ichika couldn't explain it. She said it was something only Hinoki the founder could use. That only made Makoto more interested, since he'd already read about it. Not long after, Ichika realized she had nothing left to teach him. Makoto had already mastered Hinoki's one-handed sword style. Makoto still wanted to get stronger, but Ichika didn't know how he could go further. She said he was like a flower bud that still hadn't bloomed, and even with all his training, blooming in this life might be hard. Still, she hoped one day a greater swordsman would appear before him. Now, in the present, Makoto realizes that moment is here. He's watching Kannagi use sword moves he didn't even know were possible. Ichika once said a chance like this may come only once in a lifetime, and he can't let it slip away. Thanking Ichika in his heart, Makoto brings his severed arms together. All the founders stare at him, confused about what he's trying to do. Kannagi is worried about his captain too, because outside the cage, beside the enemy, Makoto starts giving off the same kind of aura as the protagonist. Far away at the anti-prophecy faction's training ground, Midori is sparring with Sutuo. When he senses an overwhelming aura, a blast suddenly shakes the place, and when it clears, there's a giant hole in the wall, and Midori is gone. Back on the battlefield, the guy can't understand how Makoto can still do any of this in his condition. He knows he's about to be cut down. Seeing it happen, Hinoki explains to Kannagi that people are like flowers. They bloom when they reach their true peak, through body, spirit, or a perfected technique. For Makoto, that time is now. Standing behind MC, Hinoki tells him to burn this moment into his memory. He understands. Like a flower opening, Makoto raises his arms as if he holds a sword and with complete focus, uses the lost move from Hinoki's one-handed style. Indomitable, the technique he only knew from the book. Even though the guy's darkness defense activates perfectly, Makoto still cuts him in half without a real sword in hand. As his body splits apart, the guy wonders if this is where his journey ends. Hinoki praises Makoto for creating a sword from pure thought. Makoto stands there dazed, but deep down he feels he has finally become the swordsman he always wanted to be. He feels blessed for the time he had with his family, his friends, his comrades, and those under him. Everything he's lived through made him stronger. And if this really is the end, he thinks of his little brother and his cat, quietly apologizing to them both. As his vision starts fading, he sees Kannagi coming toward him, holding out a hand with a smile. In that moment, Makoto realizes death may not be the end after all. Through the protagonist, his will can still reach the next generation. He takes the protagonist's hand, thanks him, and collapses. When the cage disappears with the guy's defeat, Kannagi rushes to his captain, feeling that deep bond through the crest of nothingness. All around them, the others are already lying dead. And just as Makoto is about to join them, Midori comes flying in. He catches Makoto before he hits the ground. Makoto dies in Midori's arms at just 23. After killing the darkness user, Midori holds Makoto's body. He can't accept what just happened. Then he remembers training with Makoto and asking why he became squad captain. Midori told him that in the anti-prophecy unit, Makoto was second only to him. If Makoto really went all out, nobody could stop him. So Midori asked why someone that strong didn't just fight alone. Makoto was caught off guard and asked if Midori thought he couldn't work with others. But to Makoto, his team meant more than anything. He just didn't know how to put that into words. Right then, his teammates called through the security camera. Jakaru was fired up because Kuzushiro had just cleared his level 2 assignment. Kuzushiro was thrilled too, and said he wanted to tell the captain first. Jakaru then suggested they all go get lunch. Watching them joke around and celebrate together, Midori was stunned. Makoto then admitted he truly cared about his squad, and even if he got hurt in battle, he'd still be glad if his comrades were with him. Back in the present, Midori cradles Makoto's body and says that wish came true. Even if most of the squad is gone, 2 of them are still alive. With tears in his eyes, Midori closes Makoto's eyes and says he fulfilled his duty as a leader. Midori knows he couldn't have done the same, but Makoto did, and did it with honor. Nearby, Kannagi lies on the ground. The founders stand behind him as darkness starts swallowing his mind. The mage says it's probably because MC blames himself for the station's destruction and for not being strong enough. The founders all know this pain too. They've each lost comrades, friends, and family, and many of them, like Hinoki, never truly recovered. Hinoki walks up to Kannagi, who is kneeling there in despair, and calls out to him, but he says he doesn't want to fight anymore. His heart feels shattered. He believes that if the founders had fought from the start, no one would have died. Trying to grow stronger for others only turned him into a vessel for them. Hinoki tries to answer, but the protagonist is drowning in his own thoughts. In his mind, he feels the hand he shared with Makoto burning like fire. He understands that Makoto trusted him to carry on what he left behind. That brings tears to the founders' eyes, but Kannagi's next words stun them. He says he doesn't just want to surpass the founders anymore. He wants to go beyond them every single moment. Then a bright beam of light strikes MC. He declares his resolve. From now on, he won't let anyone else die. 1 month later, at Mount Mitake in Nagano Prefecture, Suo spars with him in hand-to-hand combat, throwing punch after punch, but he avoids every one. The protagonist fires back with a penetration attack, and even though Suo blocks it, the impact sends a shockwave behind him. MC is shocked that Suo redirected the force so easily. Before he can think more, Suo attacks again. This time he is ready, and uses Aikido to toss Suo around. Su throws a kick in midair, but Kannagi blocks it and answers with a heavy kick of his own. Right before it lands, a loud shout stops them. It's Ichika. So how did things end up like this? The destruction of Makoto's squad left a huge wound in the anti-prophecy unit. At the funeral, everyone was grieving, but Su stood in front of his brother's photo without moving. Later, Kannagi saw him leaving Makoto's room with some books and a cat. The protagonist recognized the cat as Oribe, the one Makoto always mentioned. Sama was surprised MC knew about the cat, since even he hadn't known. Before going into Makoto's room, Sama had no idea about the cat, the books, the clothes, the food, or even what his brother had been thinking. He only learned all that after sorting through Makoto's things. Kannagi then noticed Sama was carrying a stack of diaries. Makoto had left them for his brother, in case he died. They recorded his training, missions, and daily life, but Sama found something else in them too. Nearly every entry ended with Makoto worrying about him, how Suo was doing, the cold weather, his progress, and little events in his life. Reading those entries alone in his room, Suo collapsed to the floor in tears, realizing everything his brother wrote came back to him. As Suo told Kannagi all this, he shared that Makoto always talked about Suo and Oribe too. That made Suo tear up again. He then says he wants to get stronger so his brother won't have to worry about him anymore, even from heaven. After that, the two of them went to Ichika for training. She was cautious at first until they explained that Suo was Makoto's brother, and that Makoto had died in battle. That shocked Ichika, but she stayed calm. Then both Suo and the protagonist asked her to make them stronger. Back in the present, Ichika is amazed by how much they've grown, especially Suo. Kannagi asks about his own progress, and Ichika lets out an annoyed sigh. She says she has nothing left to teach him because he already knows too much, then jokes that she should be asking him for lessons instead. She kicks a stick toward them both and grinning wildly says she is the sword, so they should come at her. Both of them rush in with Suo attacking head-on and MC striking from above. As they fight, MC swears he'll keep getting stronger and become the strongest awakener in the world. Meanwhile, in London, England, a man in a hat and coat walks alone through the night. As he turns into an alley, someone identifies him as Quatre, one of the 12 apostles of the apocalypse. Quatre recognizes the person facing him too. It's Midori. Midori coldly demands the location of Quatre's base and comrades, warning that anything else will get him killed. Quatre instantly pulls out his strange heart-shaped pike and tells Midori to try him. A burst of blood suddenly sprays from the alley, and Midori walks out untouched. Outside, other anti-prophecy members are waiting. Midori hands them the book, then turns away and says 7 are left. That gives them 5 books total, meaning they've already killed 5 of the 12 apostles of the apocalypse, and Midori is already moving on to the next target. Inside Anti-Prophecy's top-secret facility, the Hunt of Everlasting Secrets, someone presents Midori's recovered book to an old woman. She is Io, the superintendent of the Anti-Prophecy unit. The man delivering the book says it came from Midori, and explains that these are prophecy books taken from the 12 apostles of the apocalypse. He is Tengen, Io's assistant. Another assistant, Shiki, is there as well. She suggests the books may all be pieces of one larger book that was split apart. Io opens the book and says the real problem isn't killing the apostles or collecting the books. The bigger issue is Midori acting alone, and Makoto's death seems to have scarred him deeply. Hearing that, Shiki asks what they should do. With a smile, Io tells them to leave Midori to her, and says she'll make tea for him when he comes back. Then Tengen and Shiki suggest that since Makoto's squad is gone and left an empty spot in the anti-prophecy unit, they're willing to form a new squad under their own command. Io goes quiet and thinks it over. Meanwhile, near Tokyo, a rank 2 prophecy called Rebellion is breaking out. Its boss is the God of Down. Anti-prophecy members are fighting the prophecy's troops, but they're having trouble taking down even a few. In panic, they call for their captain Hibiki. Hibiki, captain of the Hibiki Setsuna squad, steps forward. To her, these enemies are boring and easy. She glances back at Akane, who is training with her squad, and asks if she can handle it. Akane activates her Trismegistus spell, forming a huge mass of mercury. She tells everyone to stay back and spreads the mercury across the ground toward the troops. Once it covers their feet, Akane changes the mercury into gas. The troops start coughing and choking. Then she turns the gas back into liquid mercury, now inside their bodies. Next, she uses crimson heat to boil it, and finally solidifies it, killing them instantly as spikes form inside their bodies. The whole squad is stunned, because Akane wiped out every troop in seconds. She snaps her fingers, turns back to the group, and says she's done. Hibiki walks over, clapping, and praises her for using all 3 states of matter and chaining 4 attacks into one skill. Lifting Akane's chin, Hibiki says it's a shame she's only a temporary member, then invites her to join the squad for real after training ends. Akane excitedly says she'll think about it. The others are impressed too, wondering if someone that cute and strong might really join them. But actually, Hibiki wants Akane on the team because she'd make fights even easier. As soon as Akane leaves, she calls Kanagi to say she finished Lesson 7 on controlling alchemy's 3 states, and asks him to send the next one. He, busy protecting his lunch from the cat, says okay. The founder alchemist is amazed Akane mastered level 7 already, and the protagonist asks him to prepare 3 more lessons for her. He happily agrees. Kanagi tells Akane, and she thanks him. She also says Hanada has already reached Lesson 8. In Tokorozawa City, Saitama Prefecture, a rank 2 prophecy called Earth-Eating Beast appears, led by Sphinx. Hanada goes after the boss and destroys it with one lightning kick, clearing his level 8 lesson. The captain of the Todoroki squad praises Hanada and asks him to join their team. Like Akane, Hanada says he needs time to decide which squad to join, then asks her what she thinks. Akane grins and says it doesn't matter which squad he picks, she'll beat them anyway. Kanagi, still on the call with them, is glad they're both getting stronger and says he should start training harder too. That makes Suo complain that Oribe always sticks to MC instead of him, and he tries to pull the cat away. Then Akane brings up a rumor about a new squad. Since he hasn't heard, she explains it's being made to replace Makoto's squad, and the captain will be chosen from the member with the best results. The protagonist doesn't think much of it, but Akane isn't focused on the captain choice. She wants to know if Kanagi plans to make his own squad. At first, he treats it like she's joking. Then he suddenly stops, realizing how serious that idea is, and asks why she brought it up. Akane says there's a wish inside the anti-prophecy. They want a force that can wipe out every prophecy. That catches MC off guard, and Akane admits she wants that too. She says everyone is looking for a strong leader, and in her eyes, Kanagi has what it takes to become a squad captain. Right then, her captain calls for her, so Akane quickly says goodbye and leaves the call. After that, he can't stop thinking about becoming a captain himself. Elsewhere, Ichika asks Suin about the protagonist, and he tells her about the talk of the protagonist possibly becoming a captain. Ichika says Kanagi could do it if he wanted, and Suo agrees. Still unsure, MC turns to the founders for advice, but even they don't seem sure what to tell him. They realize they've spent their whole lives serving a master, so they don't know much about this kind of choice. The mage founder bitterly calls them useless teachers, since they can't guide him here. Hinoki asks the founder of military strategy, Rion, for his view, but Rion refuses to step in and says the time isn't right. He adds that someone else is already fit to guide Kannagi. Before the protagonist can think that over, a wooden spear slams into the ground right beside him. He looks up and sees Ichika coming over, telling him to stop overthinking and keep training. With a wild grin, she challenges him to use Flash Step on her. Kannagi accepts, jumps down from the rock, and uses Flash Step. He mixes it with Ripple Step so he can land lightly. Ichika is amazed and starts wondering who MC really is. To her, no normal awakener should reach this level in only 6 months. He laughs, remembering all the times Hinoki pushed him through brutal Flash Step training and how often he failed. But the memory ends fast when he feels energy rushing at him. Ichika charges in with her wooden staff powered up and he barely slips away. Her strike splits the rock behind him in two. Seplisryu is left speechless. Ichika tells Kannagi she doesn't care if he's distracted. She'll make him focus. A little tense now, the protagonist steadies himself and fully locks in. Inside him, Hinoki realizes Rion meant Ichika was the one who could guide MC. The mage founder also sees that Ichika is insanely strong for a modern awakener, just like you'd expect from Hinoki's line. Hinoki denies having kids and says she might be tied to his brother instead, but he still admits she's strong. After all, she trained Makoto. That means she could be a true successor. But then Hinoki notices her using a move called Skyfall, one he's never seen before. It fires an electric blast at Kannagi, and he narrowly avoids it. From that one attack, he realizes Ichika is fighting him seriously. She rushes in again and follows with her Purgatory Sword technique, sending a heavy strike straight at him. Hinoki watches in excitement, realizing Ichika created a new move by sharpening everything passed down to her. Kannagi dodges again, and Ichika is impressed. He's never seen this technique before, yet he still got clear. She praises his one-handed sword style, saying it looks a lot like the founder's. That shocks the protagonist, and before he can answer, Ichika says maybe he's been worrying about whether he can ever become as strong as Makoto. MC freezes. That is exactly what's been bothering him. Suo is stunned too after hearing it. Kannagi grips his sword tighter. He remembers seeing Makoto's power for himself and how amazing he was as a captain. That's why he keeps wondering if he'll ever reach that level. Then, to his surprise, Ichika tells him he doesn't need to become Makoto. She suddenly shouts for him to focus, pours in her energy, and unleashes Tengu Dance, creating a huge water tornado. She says that move was built by later masters, who kept developing the founder's style. They may never match the founder because the gap is too huge, but they kept chasing that peak and got closer little by little. Kannagi finally gets what she's saying. Ichika admits she doesn't fully know how great Makoto was, but from what she saw, he had to be an amazing leader. She says the protagonist won't be the same as Makoto at first, but if he keeps sharpening himself, he can absolutely reach that level. Pointing her wooden stick at him, she tells him not to try to copy Makoto. Instead, he should walk the path that was left to him. Those words make Kannagi remember the day Makoto shook his hand. Looking back on that moment, he understands he needs to face forward instead of measuring himself against someone else. Ichika smiles and says that for that future, she'll train him herself. After that, they throw themselves into brutal training for 2 weeks. Then, at Anti-Prophecy headquarters, Hibiki and Todoroki look over the list of new squad captain candidates. The recommendations came straight from the superintendent. Kannagi and Ichika are both on it. Some people think those picks are strange. Outside the building, a shadowy figure talks on the phone saying they've already infiltrated the facility and that the new captain exam starts in 3 days. Holding the Book of Doom, the figure declares they will become the Anti-Prophecy's next squad leader. That person is Eva, one of the 12 apostles of Apocalypse. Eva has a skill called Heavenly Demon that lets her take the place of anyone she kills. Her plan is to become captain of the new squad and destroy the Anti-Prophecy from the inside. While Midori keeps hunting the 12 apostles and has already taken down over half of them, they know they can't beat him head-on. So they've chosen to tear down the Anti-Prophecy from within, because they'll do anything to complete the prophecy. 3 days later, the captain selection exam begins at the Anti-Prophecy's grand training field, and all the candidates gather. The instructor announces there will be 4 tests. Only 4 people can move on to the final round. Each test uses points. First gets 3, second gets 2, and third gets 1. Whoever ends with the highest total will become captain of the new squad. The superintendent watches in silence, while the instructor tells everyone to do their best. They all answer with a loud yes. Kannagi can feel everyone's eyes on him. There are 8 candidates: Koki from the Yagarama squad, Akihina from the Yorizuya squad, Sonobe from the Yashima squad, Hisagi from the Kakabe squad, Sakazaki from the Sarazaki squad, Shikami from the Todoroki squad, and Jiru from the Hibiki squad. But the real problem is that one of them is actually Eva, a hidden apostle posing as a candidate. Then there's Kannagi, the special recommendation. Unlike the others, he's by himself. Since Ichika, his captain, isn't there, she overslept again. Still, she sends him a message saying if he loses, she'll make him pay for it herself. Not wanting to get knocked out before Ichika arrives, MC steels himself for the exam. At the same time, Ichika races toward the training grounds on Tsutsuback, yelling for him to move faster. She knows they could miss the most important part if they don't hurry. Since she's sure Kannagi will win, she refuses to miss it. Back at the field, the first test starts. Mana measurement. To everyone's shock, he pours out so much energy that the measuring device breaks, giving him first place. Akihina from the Yorozuya squad, who comes in 5th, is stunned by how overwhelming the protagonist's power is. Sakazaki gets 3rd and Sonobe takes 2nd, and both realize Kannagi is on a different level. Sakazaki says strange cases like this happen when a true genius shows up in either raw strength or mana, and he figures MC is a mana monster. He compares him to another oddball in the exam, Shikami, who placed 7th. That puts him in 1st on the board with 3 points. Then the instructor announces Test 2, hand-to-hand combat. Now the real fight starts. Each person will face an opponent, and a win is worth 2 points. As the first matchup is called, Shikami raises his hand and asks to fight the protagonist. He's known as the strongest regular member in hand-to-hand combat, and is considered an irregular too. When he was only 2 years old, monsters from another dimension appeared around him. Even as a baby in a cart, he killed them all by himself, shocking his mother. He protected her and became a legend. From the crowd, Hibiki accuses Todoroki of cheating by putting Shikami into this test, but Todoroki says using his strongest fighter is completely fair. He points out that Shikami has both huge magic talent and absurd physical strength. Todoroki proudly says he's trained Shikami ever since he joined the squad, and no one has ever beaten him in hand-to-hand combat. Hearing that, Hibiki wonders if the match will be over in an instant since Shikami is almost impossible to beat up close. When the fight starts, Shikami walks up to Kannagi and asks if he's really been giving Hanada lessons. Thinking of the founders, MC answers that he's only the messenger. Shikami doesn't get it, but says someone is clearly guiding Hanada from behind the scenes, and Hanada is already a super genius. Shikami says Hanada would reach that level even without him. He just nods and agrees. That answer only makes Shikami more irritated. Furious, Shikami activates Violent Bite and turns monstrous. Then he rushes the protagonist at insane speed. MC barely ducks and Shikami instantly follows with a heavy claw strike. Todoroki loves seeing his fighter go all out. Shikami throws everything into the swing, but Kannagi slips aside and takes the opening. Dropping into Kudo's stance, he grabs Shikami's wrist and slams him hard into the ground. The hit sends out a huge shockwave and blasts rocks everywhere, leaving everyone stunned. When the dust clears, both fighters are in the air. The others can hardly believe it. Kannagi only redirected the attack, yet the force wrecked the whole field. Even he is amazed by Shikami's power, but Shikami thinks he's mocking him. Even after that slam, Shikami lands safely. That shocks everyone, especially with the ground torn apart. Akihina, looking over things on his laptop, says this was bound to happen. Shikami's body is far tougher than a normal Applicainer's. His physical boost is on another level. After steadying himself, Shikami charges again. Kannagi realizes counters alone won't beat him. He needs a new approach. Using his founder power, he throws a light kick at the incoming Shikami. Then he multiplies it with his penetration technique, Luminance Kick, hitting Shikami over and over in midair. Everyone stares in shock as Shikami crashes down, defeated. The instructor steps in at once, stops the fight, and gives Kannagi the win along with 2 more points. The other squad members are stunned. The protagonist just beat Shikami with pure close combat, even after Akihina called him an irregular. Now Akihina is typing furiously, caught off guard by how strong MC is in hand-to-hand combat. He thought he would get taken out on his own, but now he is clearly a problem for his plans. When Shikami wakes up, he's shocked to find Kannagi using a spell on him. The protagonist calmly explains that he's healing him. That only confuses Shikami more. MC has crazy mana, crazy strength, and now healing too. Still trying to process it, Shikami asks if there's anything he can't do. That question brings him back to the time he tried and failed to save the fallen Makoto squad. After healing him a bit longer, the protagonist says he should be able to stand now. While they're talking, a loud blast suddenly sounds nearby. Kannagi looks over and says that's the final hand-to-hand match. Shikami panics, thinking he was out for a long time, but MC tells him it has only been 5 minutes. He explains that the other fights started right after theirs, and 2 of them ended almost instantly. Only Akihina and Hisagi are still going after 5 full minutes. Neither wants to back down. They're trading heavy blows without holding back. Hisagi rushes in, but Akihina drives her back with a strong attack. She mocks him for having no special talent, saying someone like that shouldn't be a captain. Akihina keeps his balance and answers that he was never trying to stand out. To him, a captain who only takes the role for show is just walking toward death. A real captain has to adapt to anything and raise the squad's odds of survival, even by 1%. That's the kind of leader he wants to be, so he won't repeat the fate of the Makoto squad. Those words hit Kannagi hard, since Akihina is talking about his dead comrades that way. Shikami gets angry too and tells Akihina to watch his mouth. Back in the fight, Hisagi uses her chainsword style and charges with a spinning wave of energy. Akihina blocks it, but the force still slams him into the ground. Hisagi goes in for another hit, but right before it lands, Akihina suddenly surrenders. The instructor ends the match and names Hisagi the winner, leaving her stunned. Another squad member grabs her before she can lunge at him. furious that he quit instead of fighting seriously. Akina says he expected the fight to drag on, so he saved his strength for the next tests. As he walks off, he's sure he could have beaten Hisagi but doesn't want to show everything yet, especially with Kanagi watching. The hand-to-hand round ends with him in first at 5 points and Tsunonobe in second with 3. The instructor calls for a 30-minute break and warns that after the next test, the 4 lowest scores will be cut. As lunch starts, the protagonist wonders where Ikina and Su are. They should already be here. Outside Anti-Prophecy headquarters, Su finally arrives carrying Ikina, completely worn out. He's confused when she heads for the courtyard instead of the training ground, and asks why. Ikina says she can smell a lingering aura there, one that tells her someone recently died. She says it feels like an awakener was killed by a monster far stronger than them. Su is stunned. If an awakener died here, then someone may have gotten inside Anti-Prophecy headquarters, even though its location is secret. Ichika says the 12 apostles are strong enough to find a place like this. That shakes Su even more, and when he asks why they would come here, she ignores that and tells him to head to the training area. But in her head, she's sure the dead person was around captain level. Since no one reported it, the whole thing is getting stranger. Now Midori, Ichika, Su, and especially Kanagi all share the same goal, avenging Makoto. During lunch, while everyone eats, talks, and treats their injuries, Akina sits alone with his laptop. MC, meanwhile, is sitting with Shikami when he suddenly lights up after spotting Ichika and Su. The mood changes fast when the others recognize Ichika. She's one of the 5 elite members of the Anti-Prophecy Special Task Force, alongside Midori. Su looks around at the captains and feels uneasy. Isega said a captain had been killed, but all 7 captains are standing here. Hearing that, Isega smirks and calls Kanagi over because she has something important to tell him. She explains everything, shocking him with the idea that one captain may actually be a 12 Apostles imposter. Based on the aura left in the courtyard, Isega says the dead person was definitely captain level. But since every captain is still here, something doesn't add up. The only answer is that one of them is a fake wearing the victim's place. Agi immediately tenses up, and Su agrees. Whoever killed a captain-level person could be standing right among them. Su warns that if they don't deal with this soon, more people could die. Worse, it could lead to a prophecy on a level that would wipe out humanity. Ichika, grinning like a maniac, suggests the simplest answer: kill everyone there and remove the threat for sure. He and Su shut that down right away. They argue that they only need to find the one apostle hiding among them and take that person out. Now fired up, Ikina says this may be their chance to avenge Makoto. The 12 apostles killed him, after all. She asks Kanagi if he wants the same thing, and remembering what happened to Makoto and the squad, he says yes. Su clenches his fists too, thinking about what happened to his brother. The protagonist then asks Azure, founder of the detectives, what he thinks. Azure says the first step should be checking the crime scene, but with the exam still going, that's not really possible. Kanagi thinks about rushing there before lunch ends, but Azure warns that it could tip off the killer. If this apostle is as strong as the one from Snowy Mountain, he could wipe everyone out here. They have to be ready for that. So MC decides to inspect the area after today's test, then asks if even the founders might fail to sense any aura left behind. Hinoki says they've spent the last month near a volcano while he trained and perfected his one-handed sword style. He explains that the volcano could be messing with the flow of chi, making leftover energy hard to detect. Mage adds that if the aura can only be sensed up close, then the enemy is almost surely 12 Apostles class. Azure gets annoyed that everyone is stepping into his detective work, but Hinoki cuts him off and says they should focus on finding the culprit so he can kill him. Going back to the problem, Azure tells him to ask Ichika something. He asks whether the apostle could be hiding as a candidate instead of a captain. That catches Ichika by surprise, but after thinking, she admits it's possible if they're talking about captain candidates. Even so, she says the actual squad captains still can't be cleared. Kanagi gets it and quickly comes up with a plan for the next test, assuming it's based on combat. But only a few minutes later, the instructor starts the 3rd exam and reveals it's a written test, completely blindsiding the protagonist. The candidates are put in separate rooms with no phones, so MC can't gather any clues about the imposter. The exam is all about anti-prophecy rules, and he barely understands any of it. Still, he refuses to quit and pushes through. When time is up, the instructor announces the results. Kanagi gets no points while Akihina climbs to second with 3. The bottom 4 candidates, including Shikami, are eliminated. The protagonist feels ashamed for getting the worst score on the written test, but he stands there frustrated. Shikami comes over and tells MC he did a good job. They both got 0 on the written test, but Shikami is even more upset that Akihina got a perfect score. Even so, he praises Kanagi for staying in first place. He says he'll be rooting for him in the second half, then wonders who'll become the new captain. After that, the superintendent will check if the new squad can actually work together. Shikami explains a squad needs at least 7 people, so the captain has to gather 6 more members. He tells him to start thinking about who he'll pick once he becomes captain. Then he puts a hand on the protagonist's shoulder and offers to join his squad, bragging about his strong body. With a grin, Shikami walks off and wishes MC luck in the rest of the exam. Once he's gone, Azure tells him to go check the crime scene. But the way he says it makes him realize Azure already knows who did it. Azure confirms it, but says he still needs hard proof before he can officially name the culprit. Then he says it's time for them to strike back at the 12 apostles. The mage goes over everything that's happened and mentions that Detective Azure has been helping the protagonist think through the case. Hinoki gets annoyed by how roundabout she sounds, but she's clearly doing it to keep things light. At the crime scene, Azure steps in for MC and starts investigating. Just like he thought, all the clues match his theory. Now that the victim is confirmed, he knows exactly who the killer is too. Hearing that, Hinoki realizes their enemy really is one of the 12 apostles, and that he may have the Book of Doom, just like the last apostle. The mage asks what they do next, but before Kanagi can answer, he feels a sudden wave of power and gets pulled into a cloudy world. There, he meets an old woman who just says she's a random granny passing by. She asks how the investigation is going, and he says there's been a murder. The killer is using someone else's body and is very skilled. The granny asks if they should catch the culprit now, but he says they already know who it is and not by guessing. They have proof. Even so, he says he still can't reveal everything yet. The granny doesn't get it. To her, the best move is to expose the killer and take them out right away. The protagonist tells her it only looks that simple. There are actually 2 culprits, not 1. He says it's better to bring them both down together when they're in the same place. He'll handle it in the morning, and asks the old lady, who is really the superintendent, to stay out of it and just watch. She smiles, wishes him luck, and repeats that she's only a passing granny who won't interfere. As she starts to leave, Kanagi tells her his name, which makes the old woman smile again. A strong burst of energy suddenly rushes into him, and he returns to his body. In a secret place, the assistant asks the superintendent if it's really okay to leave things like this. The granny says she doesn't mind. Kanagi seems close to the truth and looks like he has a plan. She just wants to see what he'll do next. Then she tells the assistant to have the other officers back him up if anything happens. The assistant agrees but says she didn't find anything special even after checking the leftover traces. Still, the superintendent chooses to trust MC. The assistant can't understand why she believes in him so much. The granny says it's because of the confidence and resolve she saw in his eyes. The next day, he walks through the woods when Shikami joins him and explains the next test. This one will judge how well they could act as squad captain. Shikami says Akihina will probably lean on strategy, but he's still cheering for Kanagi. The protagonist thanks him, then suddenly asks why Shikami threw the exam on purpose. After a short, creepy pause, Shikami turns to him and says he changed his plan halfway through. Instead of becoming captain, he'd rather work his own way under a strong one. Kanagi eyes him suspiciously and says he did it so he could wipe out all the squad's promising members. Ichika is nearby too, hiding in the trees as backup. Shikami doesn't deny it. He says he has no problem killing someone if it's needed for a replacement. He explains that in the third test, he couldn't write anything because his brain could only pull out what was already stored there. That's why he scored 0. Calling himself an idiot, he says it would be easier to just get rid of Akihina's body instead. When they reach an open field, all the squad captains and members are waiting around them. At the center, Todoroki is chained to the ground, with Hibiki and another captain standing beside him, still wearing her usual smug attitude. Hibiki calls Shikami Mr. Apostle and tells him to introduce himself. Knowing his cover is blown, Shikami drops the act, lowers his voice, and reveals he's really Eva, the 9th apostle. Eva explains that her power lets her pull information straight from a host, and says she chose Shikami because he had the best body among the candidates. Hibiki asks with a smirk if Eva was trying to wreck the anti-prophecy from the inside. Eva says yes, but now that she's failed, she'll just kill everyone here instead. Before that though, she wants to know who figured her out first. Hibiki points at Kanagi, who's standing right next to Eva. Eva gives him a nasty grin and says she's surprised he had the nerve to stand that close. She turns toward him, releasing a huge amount of energy, and demands to know who he is. But how did they get to this point? Before Eva took over Shikami's body, Todoroki had told him he'd recommend him as a candidate for the new squad captain. Shikami was thrilled by that. Still, Todoroki warned him it was secret for now, and would only be announced the next morning. Shikami got even more excited and joked that if they kept talking like this, everyone would find out anyway. Todoroki reassured him, saying Shikami was one of the strongest there when it came to raw power, and would make an excellent captain. Hearing that faith in him, Shikami agreed and promised to do his best. But just as he went for a fist bump with Todoroki, something sliced him to pieces. In an instant, Shikami was butchered right in front of Todoroki. Todoroki froze, unable to understand what he'd just seen. Then a deep voice rang out, mocking Shikami for being so weak and asking if this was really the level of an anti-prophecy captain candidate. The voice answered its own question, saying the squad only got strong because of artifacts, and the one who gave them those tools. Then the figure stepped forward, introduced herself as Eva of the 12 Apostles, and said she looked forward to what came next. Eva walked over to Shikami's corpse and used her heavenly demon skill to take it over completely. While she was doing that, Todoroki unleashed Vajra and blew her body apart with one massive punch. Breathing hard and furious, Todoroki starts tearing up, but then he hears clapping behind him. The same Shikami he saw die is standing there, praising Todoroki for killing a 12 apostle in one hit, just like his master should. Shocked, Todoroki turns and sees Shikami somehow alive. Before he can react, Eva, now wearing Shikami's form, cuts him in half. With a cruel grin, Eva activates the necromance dance artifact and turns Todoroki into a corpse slave under her control. Now controlled by Eva, Todoroki agrees to serve her, and starts to call her Eva, but she slaps him hard enough to nearly knock him over. She corrects him and says to call her Shikami so nobody will suspect her disguise. Todoroki obeys, and the two break into a twisted laugh. Meanwhile, Kanagi and Azure investigate the crime scene. Using his skill, theatrical detective, Azure rewinds the scene and watches what happened there. The skill lets him replay past events at a crime scene and see the truth for himself. But there are rules. Azure has to hold the evidence himself and solve the case with his own deduction, not just by staring at clues. It can even let him predict future crimes. But there's a big downside. If he ever gets a case wrong, the skill is gone forever. As Azure explains this to the founders, they're disgusted by Eva's dirty power, killing someone, then stealing their body. Then the whole place goes silent as everyone looks at Kanagi, who's overflowing with mana and barely holding back his rage. He swears he will never forgive the apostle. Back in the present, still furious, MC rushes Eva with a flash reflection punch boosted by his penetration spell and drives it straight at her. He follows with Luminance Fist, and when his blow lands on Eva's face, a huge blast explodes out. The hit sends her flying. She tries to recover, but the force makes her slide back as she fights to stay on her feet. When the dust clears, Kanagi is shocked to hear her laughing. She calls him cruel and mocks him, saying he hit her without mercy even though she was using Shikami's body. He already knows his current strength isn't enough to beat Eva. Still shaken from the impact, Eva says it was nothing, and sneers that his attacks feel like child's play. As the recoil wears off, she yells that moves like that won't ever hurt her. Kanagi agrees but says he was never supposed to be the one who beats her. He was only stalling long enough for the mage founder to take over his body. As the founder takes control, she says she'll handle the rest, and the protagonist's body erupts with energy. Seeing this, Eva realizes MC may be the one the satellites warned her about, the person who changed completely. But instead of getting scared, she gets even more thrilled. With a wicked grin, she calls down hundreds of mummies from the sky. Then she says, life is only fun when death is on the line, so they should fight with everything they have. Watching them fall, Azure says they look like empty puppets' bodies Eva stole and now controls. Eva laughs and brags that every mummy is as strong as Shikami, then dares them to come at her. Habuki looks around and realizes there are about 100 of them, all at Shikami's level. A nearby candidate is stunned. From inside his own mind, Kanagi is disgusted that Eva is using the bodies of the people she crushed. The mage beside him says he's changed, and so have the founders. As the mummies dive toward the ground, the mage using his body says Eva made a huge mistake. She fires off a storm of electric blasts, zapping every mummy out of the air and stunning Eva. The mage takes it as an insult. Eva dropped her minions right in front of her, forcing her to strike before they could land. As the burning mummies fall from the sky, Eva stares in confusion, wondering what Kanagi just did. Some people train for years to gain perfect aim, but the protagonist used the skill like it was nothing, and hit every target without missing once. The mage tells MC to stay by her side and watch carefully. He's amazed that even in a weak body she can still use all her spells so smoothly. Calling him closer, she explains that Kanagi only chased power for himself, while the founders wanted to use their power through him. He doesn't get what she means. She goes on, saying that even after all this, the protagonist drunk on power still thought only about getting stronger. At the same time, the founders are just as intoxicated by MC's unmatched talent. But after losing a friend, someone who trusted him with the future, the mage says Kanagi is now furious from the bottom of his heart. Pointing at the excited founders, she tells Eva they all like this new theme. Eva is thrown off by that. She rushes in, shouting that the world is simple. The strong crush the weak. But just before she can hit him, a burst of lightning flashes in front of her and stops her cold. Eva looks around in shock and sees thunder raining from the sky. The mage says plenty of people think like Eva, but she once saw a being strong enough to destroy the tower, get played with, and eaten by beasts from another world. After watching her comrades fall, she now stands for the weak and swears to avenge them. Walking toward Eva and Kanagi's body, the mage calls her pathetic and mocks her for not having the strength to really fight. Eva can't even stand back up as thunder keeps blasting her. The mage knows that even when the protagonist trained in the mountains and acted cheerful, deep down he wanted revenge. And all the founders feel the same way. They believe Kanagi will someday reach the same height they did. She holds out a hand and tells him that if he ever needs help, they'll give it. And if something brings him pain, he just has to point at it. They'll end the prophecy. MC immediately points at Eva in the air and lightning bolts rip her body apart. Everyone is stunned. Even the instructor realizes Kanagi is like Midori as a child, a monster in the making. Lying there in pieces, Eva can't understand how this kid destroyed her whole army and tore her body apart too. He walks up and asks if she finally understands their power. Then he says he has a lot to ask her. He adds that he knows plenty of people who are good at interrogation, and he plans to make her explain everything. But in a deep voice, Eva says she can't beat Kanagi like this, and admits her boss was right. Suddenly a coffin rises from the ground. Eva calls it her trump card. The protagonist is stunned. Eva explains that hundreds of years ago, one founder, the 10,000-man army slasher, helped destroy the tower, To MC's horror, she reveals the body of Hinoki Reihiru inside the coffin. All the founders, especially Hinoki's spirit, are shocked that she has his corpse. Without saying a word, the mage drops a thunderbolt on the coffin. Hinoki is shocked, but the mage says this is serious now. Eva has already taken over his body. Then Hinoki's corpse rises, sword in hand. Excited by her new power, Eva says she can finally fight them as an equal. Kannagi feels the crushing pressure in the air and realizes it's even worse than what he felt training with Ichika. Then Eva snaps her fingers and hundreds more minions rise from the ground. Calling it her second wave, she makes Kannagi worry, but the mage tells him it's nothing. As Eva keeps summoning more, an explosion suddenly goes off behind her. She turns and sees his friends arriving, Ichika, Suo, and the others, ready to fight. The protagonist isn't alone. Eva gets annoyed because she thought he had no one else. As she listens to him speak, Kannagi notices the corpse sounds exactly like Hinoki. Even with their allies here, the group still struggles to bring the minions down, and Eva smugly says these ones are much stronger. This batch has a hardening skill, and even a full-force attack can't leave a scratch. Worse, every minion has its own unique skill, making them even harder to handle. With so many at once, the anti-prophecy group is getting overwhelmed. After watching closely, Hibiki activates her sound visualization release skill, creating a sound phoenix that wipes out a whole group at once. Even so, she stays cautious because each minion is boosted by its own ability. And just when the fight is already a mess, Todoroki suddenly breaks free of his chains and slams one of the younger members into the ground. Hibiki reacts in time and saves them. Through all this, Eva is loving the chaos. She smugly says that in a fight like this, only squad captains can hope to survive. Kannagi looks to the other founders for an answer, but none of them speak, so he turns to the mage and asks for control of his body back, just for a moment. She's surprised, but agrees. Once he takes over, MC mocks Eva and says her mistake was looking down on his friends. Elsewhere, Hanada gets surrounded by minions, but he remembers Lesson 7 from Kannagi. Using his fist technique, he summons a dragon to power and shape his attacks. Then he tears through every minion, rushing him with explosive kicks. Earlier, Founder Spirit Wantak had noticed Hanada's body was both strong and flexible, and that he liked fast movement and focused strikes. Another founder argued the style was solid, but it could become much better with their help. Now Hana puts all of that training together, moving like a snake and crushing minions from every angle with clean, sharp blows. At the same time, Akane braces herself for the swarm charging her. She remembers Kannagi's advice about transmute, turning something flawed into something perfect. She used to make only cheap, weak weapons, but now she's gone far beyond that, forming stone golems straight from the ground. That was Lesson 8, and with it, she can smash through even the hardened minions. Kannagi asks Hinoki about Suo, but Hinoki says Suo is doing just fine. He may not be as gifted as his brother, but he has talents of his own. Right now, he's using Hinoki's one-handed sword style with Skyfall, cutting down a whole pack of minions in one swing. Then he mixes it with Calendula, making a flower-shaped slash that hits a wide area. She watches with pride, impressed by how smoothly her student is mixing techniques and skills. Even so, she still thinks Kannagi's combos are on another level. While cutting through minions and thinking that over, she suddenly notices a huge fire tornado in front of her. That can only mean his fight with the 12 apostles has already started. But when she looks closer, her shock grows. Kannagi is fighting the legendary founder Hinoki. Eva rushes the protagonist using Hinoki's one-handed sword style with the wave-cutting blade technique. MC slips past it with absurd precision. Even though she misses him, the attack still tears up the ground. He fires back at once with the mage's thunderbolt, but someone as strong as Eva barely feels it. She answers with Dice Slash, cutting the whole battlefield into cubes and even slicing through her own minions. Kannagi survives by jumping onto one of the floating blocks and remembers he once endured this very move with his own body. As the field breaks apart into moving cubes, the others can barely keep their balance. One member grabs another who is about to fall, but before they can pull her up, Dice Slash cuts his arm off and she drops, still clutching the severed arm as she falls. Kannagi spots them just in time. He instantly casts a bubble spell and lifts them all to safety. The mage spirit, getting more worried, asks Hinoki what they should do. Hinoki tells her to decide for herself, and she does. Then, just as Eva fires Splitting Cloud, a beam attack, she unleashes it, throwing the battlefield into even more madness. Eva is thrilled by what a founder's body can do, amazed at how perfectly Hinoki's body is built for combat. Even so, she decides she needs something stronger. So she activates Hinoki's secret art, Indomitability, and moves in to strike. But Kannagi shocks her by catching the sword with his bare hand. Hinoki's spirit isn't impressed, and the mage mocks Eva, saying that even with Hinoki's body, she's still weak. Hearing that, Eva snaps, and demands how a founder's body could ever be called weak. Wanting more power, she digs through Hinoki's memories for a stronger move. But the deeper she goes, the more her eyes fill with tears like she found something horrifying. Those tears come from the flood of Hinoki's past, from when he was still alive in the Age of the Towers. Just seeing it nearly drives Eva insane. In that memory, Hinoki cuts an entire tower in half with one swing. But after battles like that, he only becomes colder and more distant. Eva can't understand how a human could reach that kind of skill and wisdom. Hinoki's memories are packed with destruction, bodies being cut apart, monsters falling by the dozens, even the sea split open, and wounds carved into the planet itself. The weight of those memories crushes Eva's spirit, and she starts falling apart under it. She panics, wondering where to go and how to become stronger. But it's too much. Her soul starts cracking like it's about to break for good. Hinoki's spirit just shrugs and says Eva's soul can break if it wants. Another founder quickly warns that if that happens, she'll go berserk and attack everything nearby, and that's exactly what happens. Eva's spirit shatters. A terrible scream bursts out of her, so strong people can feel it all the way in Takasaki. The shock makes officials order an evacuation right away. People check their phones and learn the aura is coming from Nagano, nearly 100 kilometers away. Even from that far, the shock waves still hit them, and panic spreads. Some think the world is ending, others think a monster has appeared. Back at the battlefield, Eva keeps screaming and rocks start floating as her aura slams down on everyone there. The weaker fighters cough and collapse, crushed by the pressure. Seeing that, Kanagi calls out to Hinoki, but Hinoki stays relaxed and says he already left this to the mage. Mage agrees. As Eva walks toward the protagonist, Mage lifts her sleeve and shows the seal of truth on her arm. Calmly, she says that if she has to use Kanagi's body, she'll end this in one hit. The moment she releases the seal of truth, MC's body starts pouring out huge energy. Akane can hardly believe what she's seeing. The alchemist spirit inside him tells him and Akane to watch closely. Whether it's magic or alchemy, he says, they both chase truth, and right now, he is about to reach one piece of it. As he speaks, matching seals spread across the protagonist's arms, just like the ones Mage once had. The alchemist spirit wonders if Kanagi's body can handle these fragments of truth, or if it'll break under the strain. By now, Eva's soul is already in pieces, and only the leftovers of it are moving her body. Still, that body keeps moving on instinct, like a wild beast. Hinoki says he abandoned his body to this state long ago, and that state is called truth ignorance. As Eva's rage rises, dark energy explodes from her and warps the air around her. Seeing that, Mage glimpses a future where the power grows so huge it kills everyone there, including Kanagi, and even spreads across the continent. In that moment, Eva could become the end of the world. MC understands the danger as soon as he sees that vision. Mage then uses Magus of Truth, a skill made to shut down an enemy's abilities. Its power is so great even the world can barely handle it. Eva packs dark energy into her arm and swings at Kanagi, but he stops it cold. To her disbelief, he grabs her hand and holds it tight. In that instant, Mage fires a blazing light through him, and a burst of light erupts between them. When it fades, Eva is nothing but a burned skeleton, and he is still holding her hand. Using the protagonist's body, Mage gives Eva's fading soul one last goodbye as her ashes blow away. The other founders watch with resolve, while Hinoki stands up, annoyed that his body and soul are now fully separate. Mage smiles and asks Kanagi if what he saw will help his training. As MC takes his body back, he's stunned to find the field cleared and his teammates cheering like he defeated the monster himself. Hinika though worries he never used his sword, so maybe her lessons meant nothing. Hinota lets out a relieved sigh, while Suo praises him for burning down such a strong enemy in one attack. But Akane sees more than that. She realizes Kanagi fully read his opponent's skills and shut them down. That thought makes Akane's hands shake. Can a human really reach that level? Even so, she steels herself and decides she'll get there too. The instructor is now stressing over the giant hole in the field. This was only supposed to be an exam, but it spiraled out of control fast. Todoroki is dead too, which only makes the instructor more irritated since now another test will have to be held. As everyone starts regrouping, someone spots a bright circle and panics. The instructor freezes too, but then everyone realizes it's the superintendent. When Kanagi sees her, he remembers the old woman from inside his consciousness earlier. The assistant beside the superintendent also seems confused about why she came. Then the superintendent suddenly kneels before the protagonist, saying she has waited for his return. She says she's been waiting hundreds of years for the founders, and now they're finally standing before her. Sue and the others look to Ichika for an explanation, but she says they should have known, though this may be their first time actually seeing her. Ichika explains that the old woman is one of the founders of the anti-prophecy and the highest authority in Japan. Sue snaps that they already know that, but the real question is why she's kneeling to Kanagi. Ichika admits she has no idea. MC is just as lost, wondering why the old woman he met earlier is bowing to him. The founders inside him also try to remember what's going on, but none of them can figure it out. Then he suddenly feels her overwhelming aura and goes still. The old woman rises and asks if Kanagi remembers her, joking that she's gotten old. To prove it, she turns around and starts shaking her back, calling for Hinoki to watch her waist dance. The founders are totally confused, but then it hits them. The old woman is Io. Hinoki quickly tells Kanagi to switch with him. Once he does, Hinoki greets her, and that stuns everyone nearby. The assistants immediately step forward, taking it as an insult to their superintendent. Furious, they say they'll kill the protagonist and restart the exam. But Ao, still dancing with Hinoki, tells them to back off because everything is fine. Hinoki rubs Ao's head and jokes that she's really turned into a granny. Hearing him talk like that, Ao remembers he spoke the same way long ago, when she was with them. After a while, everyone starts fixing the training grounds and getting themselves together. Later, deep inside the anti-prophecy, in a hidden place called the Hut of Everlasting Vision, Kanagi is amazed by the garden. Io explains that because she can't show herself often, a barrier is usually placed around the area so she can live there in peace. MC asks if she knows all the founders, and Io starts telling her story. She says she was an orphan whose family died during the era of the towers, and the founders saved and raised her. Kanagi is shocked she was only a child back then, and when Io says it was 300 years ago, he's even more stunned to learn she's over 300 years old. Then she reveals she stays young by using an artifact that stops time as long as she remains inside headquarters. The moment artifacts come up, he remembers them. Hinoki's spirit explains to Valentine that the artifact works a lot like her preservation skill. Valentine agrees and says that at her peak, she could have done the same thing. Still, she wonders where Ao got something that strong. Ao explains that the anti-prophecy has a secret division that collects artifacts, and almost no one knows it exists. Recently, their storage site was attacked, and many artifacts were stolen. Because of that, a special team was made to recover them, and Midori is part of it. The detective founder inside Kanagi suspects the 10 apostles were behind the raid, which would explain their strength in the modern age. The protagonist is amazed by how fast the detective figured that out from so little. The detective then says that when Eva mentioned her boss was the one giving her artifacts, he checked her memories and confirmed it. Another founder points out that instead of finding 12 awakeners stronger than Makoto, it would be much easier to boost average ones with artifacts. Hinoki agrees, saying the 2 enemies they fought before weren't as strong as Makoto. Hinoki agrees too, adding that they didn't even know the 12 apostles existed until the raid happened. She says the apostles now hold the same kind of power as the anti-prophecy's greatest enemy, so they can't be ignored. They're doing everything they can to find the leader, but Midori may reach them first. That revelation shocks Kanagi. Meanwhile, in Detroit, Michigan, the streets are empty, and one area looks like a war zone. A violent spell suddenly forms a tornado and slams it into the ground. At the center stands Midori, who has just learned something huge. They thought the 12 apostles had only 12 members, but there's a 13th. Watching through an orb, a man stretched out on a couch smirks, impressed that Midori arrives sooner than expected. In a cold, playful voice, he asks whether Midori wants coffee or black tea. Midori answers right away. He chooses death, calling the man by his true name, Number 0. Midori fires another turbulence beam at the floating Number 0. The blast is so huge that even far away, another special task force member, Nishina, notices it. Makoto, who's with him, says the city was already evacuated so the damage should be fine, but he can't figure out why Midori is going this far. They barely get out in time, jumping off the building just before it's cut clean in half and breaks apart. After landing, they decide to leave Number 0 to Midori and go deal with Kamaragi, one of the 12 apostles. Meanwhile, Midori gets annoyed because even his strongest wind attacks can't break the bubble around Number 0. He wonders if it's a skill or an artifact. After finishing his tea, Number 0 steps out of the bubble on his own, taunting Midori and asking if he's done yet. Midori instantly fires back with Wall of Cutting Pearls, hurling huge rocks at Number 0 and setting off a massive blast. But to his shock, Number 0 walks out without a scratch. In front of Midori, he casually says the gap between them is like a whale and a fish. Midori quickly realizes Number 0 can defend himself even without that bubble. Looking right at him, Number 0 keeps mocking him. He says that normally Midori would be so strong and scary he wouldn't even want to face him. But now Midori is crushed by the loss of his friend. To Number 0, that makes him pathetic. He goes on, saying Midori was born as nothing but a monster built for battle. Yet even then, he still couldn't protect the people he cared about. That pushes Midori into a deep rage. Furious, he charges at Number 0 with terrifying force. His eyes fill with pure killing intent as old memories rush back. Memories from 23 years ago. Back then, deep in the mountains, Shinonome, a special task force member, stood frozen in shock. A huge burst of energy was rising from a crater, and he realized the Midori family mansion was gone. Superintendent Ao is there too, looking over what's left of the destroyed place. At the center, something is giving off incredible power. When Ao gets closer, she sees it's a baby. The aura is so overwhelming they think the whole disaster happened because this child was born. Without hesitating, Ao runs to the baby and takes cuts all over her body from the pressure of its energy. Even so, she keeps going until she reaches the child, picks it up and softly calms it down. She tells the baby everything is okay now. Feeling Ao's warmth, the baby slowly stops crying. Then the wild wind around them fades away, leaving Ichu bruised and bleeding, still holding the child. She declares that the anti-prophecy will raise him. Later, the baby is named Midori. 9 years later, Midori is a young boy getting ready to leave the facility. A teacher named Hinoki and 12-year-old Ichika try to stop him, warning that if he goes through with it, the anti-prophecy will come after him. Midori doesn't care and says fine. But when the master turns away, he quietly says that's the exact reason he let Midori live. Ichika, standing nearby, feels the tension, then suddenly starts laughing. Annoyed, the master asks what's so funny. Midori had always been absurdly strong, smashing every record and seeing everyone else as weak. Then one day he meets Makoto, who casually tosses him a wooden stick and asks if he wants to be his sword training partner. Midori is thrown off, but Makoto just smiles and offers his sword. Back then, they were the same age. So they start training together, but Midori can't beat Makoto with a sword. It frustrates him, yet he keeps asking for one more match. Makoto accepts, wanting him to learn, and Midori loses again. Frustrated, he shouts, asking why he still can't win, even when he's trying his hardest. Nishina, who's there too, says the problem might be that Midori is too strong. Midori can't understand that when he keeps losing to Makoto. Then a voice from outside says that's actually a compliment. It's Makoto, who was 14 at the time. Midori keeps breaking his wooden sword, and Nishina explains why with an egg. If someone uses all their power, it's hard not to crush something fragile like an eggshell in a fight. Midori still doesn't get it, so Makoto picks up the egg and throws it with full force. Midori is shocked when it hits the ground and the shell doesn't crack at all. Picking it back up, Makoto explains that Midori needs to balance his attacking aura with the aura protecting the shell. It's not really a skill, just something learned over time. While he talks, Nishina throws the rest of the eggs at the wall, and none of them break. Midori is amazed. Makoto hands him an egg and says if he wants to beat him in sword fighting, he needs to control his aura first. Once he does, even his huge power won't hurt the people around him. As Makoto starts to leave, Midori calls out to him and gets smacked in the head with an egg. Makoto turns and sees Midori wants him to stay and train aura control together. Makoto throws it back, saying Midori should apologize first. Then he kicks up the crate of eggs and makes them float with his power. Midori tries to copy him, but all the eggs around him burst or shatter. Still, after practicing for a while, he finally throws an egg hard enough to punch a hole in the wall without cracking the shell. After that, they go back to sword training, and now that Midori can control his aura, they can spar all day without wrecking everything around them. Seeing that, Nishina and Makoto get excited too and ask to fight him next. 4 years later, Midori joins the special task force, while Makoto heads off on his own path. Midori leaves for a prophecy mission to help the European branch after hearing about a special rank prophecy called Pandemonium. He asks if Makoto is still searching for a sword master, and Makoto says yes, reminding Midori that he once said he'd find his own master. Makoto holds out his fist, saying they stand as equals. Smiling, Midori bumps fists with him and says he'll be waiting. After that, Midori lives for his friends. As long as they're alive, he'll keep fighting for them. All he ever wanted was friendship, and the 12 apostles took that from him. Back in the present, with all that in mind, Midori rushes number 0 with pure killing intent, while the man stays completely calm. But right before Midori lands the hit, number 0 pulls out a golden egg and crushes it in front of him. It releases a berserk life stampede spell, flooding the area with blazing light. Other special task force members notice it too, and wonder if Midori caused it. As the glow starts to fade, Midori steps out, wrapped in a strange but powerful aura. Makoto asks if he already beat number 0, but Midori says nothing. They call out to him, but to their horror, Midori says he doesn't know them. Nishina immediately realizes something is very wrong, and yells for Makoto to get back, but it's too late. Midori already has a hand on Makoto's forehead. With a twisted smile, he uses turbulence and summons a violent whirlwind. After 3 members of the Japanese Special Task Force vanish, another team from the USA branch, including Marquise and Ashton, is sent to investigate. When they arrive, Ashton touches the ground and senses a huge amount of leftover energy, showing that this was the center of a massive explosion. Marquise is stunned by the size of the crater Midori made, and sees why he's called the strongest man in the world. Still, he can't understand how someone that powerful disappeared with his whole team. Ashton has no answer either. News of Midori's disappearance reaches the Japanese branch, throwing everything into chaos. At the Everlasting Vision Hut, the assistant superintendent gets visibly shaken and can hardly believe it. Io, just as worried, asks if they really have no clue where Midori is. She asks Midori's assistant Rin, but Rin doesn't know either because the artifact linking her to Midori was destroyed. Io says the whole thing is awful. While they're talking, Kanagi arrives, now officially a squad captain and wearing the captain's cape. He's a little embarrassed by the new title, but the assistant superintendent explains that every squad captain recommended him unanimously, and since Kanagi even fought Eva, everyone believes he's the only one who can fill the hole Makoto left behind. Kneeling, MC remembers his promise to surpass the founders quickly and stop more people from dying. He thanks them for trusting him, and says he'll do everything he can to live up to the anti-prophecy's hopes. That gets Io excited, and she says she always thought he was the right pick for captain. Then her face turns serious, and she asks what he thinks about an urgent issue. Not long ago, Kanagi was still tracking down anti-prophecy members to recruit into his squad. Now he's sitting in front of the superintendent for advice, and the whole thing feels unreal. As the superintendent speaks, a door with a tiger drawing suddenly appears behind Io. He is startled, and when it opens, Io introduces 2 special task force members, Nishina and Makoto, both badly injured. She explains they were on Midori's team and are the only ones who know what happened. Makoto starts explaining that in Detroit, the leader of the 12 apostles took control of Midori's body. That leaves Kanagi completely stunned. Makoto goes on, saying the control ability seems similar to the one Eva used before. He thinks an artifact is probably behind it, though the details don't matter right now. The important part, he says, is that Midori, the man who protected his friends, has now become humanity's enemy. That truth hits the protagonist hard. Mikado adds that Midori fought the control as long as he could, giving Nishina and Mikado time to escape. Before he finally lost himself, Midori apologized and made one last request. Midori's last request was for Kanagi to defeat number 0 in his place. That leaves MC frozen, crushed by the weight of those words. The assistant superintendent puts a hand on his shoulder and says he has high hopes for him. But first, he still hasn't reached the 7-member minimum for his squad. Right now, he only has Hanada, Akane, and Suo. So his first job is finding 3 more members and fast. With no time to waste, Kanagi runs off to recruit. He spots a young member of the Hibiki squad and chases after him, begging him to join. The boy freaks out and sprints away, yelling that he's never leaving the Hibiki squad. Just when he thinks he's safe, Akane blocks his path and shows him a transfer letter signed by Hibiki. The boy can hardly believe his captain approved it. But once he reads it, he realizes it's real and reluctantly agrees to join the protagonist squad. That gives Kanagi and Akane their 4th member. At the same time, Hana goes to recruit Akihina. His method, though, is pretty weird. He starts doing an over-the-top leg-stomping motion like it's some kind of invitation, and Akihina just stares at him. Hanada says it's the captain's order and that he wants Akihina on the team. Akihina flatly refuses, saying he's aiming for the next captain exam. A captain spot opened up after Todoroki died. Hanada doesn't back off. He suddenly throws a strong kick at Akihina to test him, but Akihina dodges with ease, showing off his strange evasive skill. Hanada only gets more interested. Now curious, Akihina offers a deal. If Hanada can touch him even once within 60 seconds in the courtyard, then he'll join the squad. Hana asks if anything goes, and when Akihina says yes, he wraps himself in a glowing dragon, ready to win. Akihina starts the timer on his laptop. Earlier, inside a limestone cave used by the anti-prophecy unit, Akihina had met Captain Surakai, who was fishing in a 17th-dimensional crack called the Underjaw. Surakai mentioned that he sometimes catches huge fish there. After noticing Akihina, he asked if he was taking the replacement exam for the Todoroki squad. Akihina said yes, but added that he wanted to be a captain who doesn't die. Todoroki told him he could still reach that goal without becoming a captain. Akihina is stunned and asks if that means he isn't fit for it. As Todoroki reels in a monster shark, he says Akihina is missing something. Back in the present, Hanada charges while Akihina keeps avoiding contact. Even when Hana gets right up on him, he still can't land a single touch. Hana quickly realizes Akihina is using some kind of dodging ability. It's Omni-Egos, a skill Akihina has hidden for a long time. Omni-Egos lets him teleport to a marked spot within 100 meters. He has to visit that place first, but once it's set, he can jump there with great speed and accuracy. No matter how many attacks Hanada throws, Akihina slips past everyone. It's a tough matchup, but Hana treats it like training because one day he'll have to face Midori. While blinking around the courtyard, Akihina asks what Hanada sees in Kanagi. Still attacking. Hana says he can't name anything special. He fires off another kick and admits he knows Akihina's idea of a good captain, someone who raises the squad's chance of survival, even by 1. Hana says that sounds noble, but he wouldn't trust a captain who puts survival above everything. That irritates Akihina, but Hana explains that people who only think about saving themselves can't reach their true goal. As he says that, he remembers his childhood, the day he found his family dead because of a prophecy. That moment made him swear to crush every prophecy. In Kanagi, he saw someone who could actually do it, and that's why he chose to follow him. Hearing that, Akihina finally understands what he's missing as a captain, being someone others can rely on. He goes back to dodging, sure he's about to win, and plans to remember this talk later. But with only 5 seconds left, Hanada starts texting someone and says the timing is perfect. Akihina is confused, and then Suo appears, using his calendula together with Skyfall to strike from above. The attack blows apart the entire courtyard. That destroys Akihina's teleport points, and Hana moves in at once. He jumps off the building and uses a flash kick to rip off a piece of Akihina's clothes. The timer hits 0, but that still counts as a touch, so Hanada wins. After landing, Sur asks if wrecking the whole courtyard was really worth it. Hanada just shrugs and thanks him for the assist. In the back, Akihina is furious, but after typing something into his laptop, he settles down and agrees to join Kanagi's squad. Hanada and Sur celebrate with a high five. Around the same time, MC and Akane bring in another recruit, Iryu bound in chains. He is stunned by the ruined courtyard, but Sur says he's counting on him to write the apology. Hanada tries to smooth things over and says Rin can probably fix it. Still, they have one problem left. They need one more member. Akane has no ideas and asks if Kanagi does. The protagonist points to the Special Task Force survivors Ichika, Mikado, and Nishina, then says he's already brought them into his squad. For now, they'll fight under him. Elsewhere at the Watchtower, the remaining 12 apostles gather for a meeting. Only 5 are left, but they're confident because they now have the strongest weapon in the world, Midori's body. To them, that puts them one step from wiping out anti-prophecy. Number 0 reminds them of their creed. They do everything to bring prophecy fully into this world. In Anti-Prophecy's research room, the assistant superintendent asks the director if he found what they needed. The director says yes and explains that the Book of Doom the 12 apostles had was actually one book split apart. Using the 8 books Midori recovered, they conclude the current disaster matches a prophecy tied to a special rank called Bhagavad Gita. He says that to destroy the world, the 12 apostles need Midori's power, and that power alone is enough. Out over the sea, Midori flies with Hajime, one of the 12 apostles, toward an unknown destination. Midori suddenly asks if he's ever read the Gita, and Hajime says no. Midori explains it's a Hindu scripture that teaches people to carry out their duty with a selfless heart. He adds that whoever wrote the prophecy now unfolding must have hated humanity deeply. As they pass over Times Square, a family spots them, and one child excitedly points out Midori as the world's strongest awakener. Soon the whole crowd catches on, cheering and asking for pictures. They notice Hajime too, calling him a samurai as the excitement keeps growing. Then Midori tells Hajime to begin. Right after that, he forms a ball of energy in his hand. The crowd keeps cheering, having no idea what's coming. A father even snaps a photo of his child with Midori behind them. Just before Midori fires the energy ball upward, swallowing the sky, it turns into a giant tornado, and from inside it, the real Midori desperately screams for Number Zero to stop. But it's too late. Number Zero has already cast turbulence. Back at Anti-Prophecy's cafeteria, Kanagi is in the middle of a lecture when Shuo rushes over and urgently shows him his phone. It's breaking news. New York is burning after Midori's attack. The report says an awakener destroyed the city. At the Everlasting Hut, American Branch Superintendent Vice is yelling at Io to do something. Furious that Midori wiped out an entire city, Io tries to calm him. But the damage is massive and countless people are dead in New York, the center of the world's economy. She explains that Midori wasn't acting on his own. The leader of the 12 apostles is controlling his body. They've already identified that man as Warren Hastings, an Englishman. Io suspects he may be working with invaders from another dimension. That shocks Vice, and Io goes on to say the 12 apostles are using artifacts outside Anti-Prophecy's control. To her, that means someone or something is backing them. Vice still says the blame falls on Io, since the man who erased a city came from their special task force. He warns that the White House is even thinking about using nukes on Midori. But Vice knows nukes won't work on Midori and asks what Io plans to do. Back in the cafeteria, Kanagi asks Sue if he finished lesson 15 with everyone else. Sue says yes, but then MC shocks him by naming him vice captain of the MC squad. He tells him to keep everyone training until they get deployment orders. He adds that Iru and Akihina are always clashing, so they need to work on teamwork if they want to be flawless. Sue asks what Kanagi plans to do himself. The protagonist says he's going to sleep, and this time it'll be a deep one. No one is allowed to wake him. Since it's a direct order, Sue accepts and chooses to trust him. Back at the Everlasting Hut, Io says she'll confront Midori with their strongest elite squad. At headquarters, MC reaches his room and drops asleep right away. In his dream, he draws his sword and trains with Hinoki, while the other founders wait to guide him. But to Kanagi's shock, Hinoki instantly cuts him to pieces in one flash. He regenerates at once, only for Hinoki to slice him apart again. Hinoki reminds him that he was the one who asked for full power training, so now he'll be devoured. With that, Hinoki rushes Kanagi at full speed. Another founder tries to step in, but Wantak and the mage stop him. The other founders argue that this kind of brutal training may work in the short term, but the protagonist is dying far too often. If this keeps up, his soul could break apart. Still, they all know Midori is the strongest awakener of this age, and MC as he is now can't beat him. This training is cruel, but it may be their only shot at winning. The founder from before warns there has to be a limit to what Kanagi can take, but the alchemist tells her not to worry. He isn't that fragile. Even after watching the protagonist get cut down over and over, the mage still believes he'll pull through. MC apologizes to Hinoki, crushed by the pressure of just standing before him. It feels like being dropped into a freezing blizzard on a mountain. After catching his breath, Kanagi faces Hinoki again. He gets split in half in an instant. But this time he manages to slice off one strand of Hinoki's hair. Before he couldn't even touch a hair. Now he finally has. No matter how many times he dies, he refuses to quit. He gets back up again and again. Meanwhile, in Mumbai at the gateway of India, a raid from the Indian branch's special task force lights up when he sees Midori. He reminds him that without his help, the special rank Prophecy Blazing Fire boss would have burned Mumbai to ash. Then with a grin, he asks whether the man who once helped save this city has now come to destroy it. Midori says those words are pointless. This may be his body, but Number Zero is controlling it. Number Zero mocks the idea that Midori can take it back. To mess with Aradeep even more, he pulls out Midori's trapped thoughts and lets Midori's own voice beg him to run. Aradeep refuses. This is his hometown, and he'll fight for it to the very end. At the Everlasting Hut, Io explains to the superintendent's assistants that humans have been at war with beings from another dimension for 100 years. Back in the Founders' era, the tower appeared first, then the crack, then the prophecies. And through all that time, some humans have always sided with those beings to help destroy the world. While she talks, one assistant sees news that India has fallen and panics, realizing the enemy now seems to be heading for Europe. Io says she expected that, though it would have been better if they had gone straight to Japan. When the assistant asks why, she explains that number 0 only took Midori's body recently, so he still can't use all its power. On top of that, the more he fights, the stronger he gets, so she orders the assistant to call in all the captains. Then she tells Tengen he'll be going to the battlefield too, and he jokes that they only remember him when they need heavy work. The real surprise is that Io says she'll fight in person as well. Since the Kanagi squad is their only real hope against Midori, the other squads must stall until they're ready. Hibiki and the other captains, clearly tense, ask how much time the protagonist needs. Io answers that MC says he needs 2 days. Then she names the battlefield, the Pacific Ocean, where they'll try to stop Midori. There, the whole Japanese branch of anti-prophecy gathers for the coming fight. When Midori charges them, he fires off turbulence right away. Io blocks it with her own defensive spell. Midori narrows his eyes in surprise and Io smirks, telling him not to look down on them. Earlier, while the captains were heading out to face Midori, Hisagi and her squad ran up, begging to come fight the leader of the 12 apostles too. Their captain says no, but Hisagi, close to tears, argues that even if they can't change the battle, they can still protect the captains with their lives. The captain turns to them and asks if they understand why the captains chose to take on such a hopeless fight. Even knowing they may never return because the gap in power is too huge, they still believe their subordinates will survive and keep fighting. That's why the captains entrust them with protecting the world. After saying that, the captains leave, and their squads are left behind. Some burst into tears while others harden their resolve to protect the Kanagi squad until its training is done. Their eyes are full of grief, but they know crying won't help. They have to move and fast. The squad captains, superintendents, and assistants teleport to the ocean and face Midori together. As Ao easily stops Midori's turbulence, the other captains stare in shock at her power. Midori is thrown off too by this unfamiliar ability. Digging through Midori's memories, number 0 recognizes Ao as Anti-Prophecy's superintendent, a mother figure to Midori, who always hid how strong she really was. Ao tells him this is the first time in 100 years that she's used her power in battle. None of the captains have ever seen her go all out, but now she activates her 8-Ada mirror spell, which has 2 stages. The first lets Ado completely cancel any ability, as long as she understands how it works, giving her perfect defense against it. It's a direct counter ability, and it works perfectly with a mage's sharp analysis. Midori doesn't wait. He answers with blazing turbulence, sending a storm of deadly tornadoes at Io. The captains realize this is the same move that burned India down, but Io already knows it, so she knocks it away with ease. Her spell's second stage lets her copy any ability after reflecting it with the first stage. She fires back with her own tornadoes, and they smash Midori's attack apart. Midori quickly figures out how her power works, but then gets irritated when he senses an attack coming from the side. One captain rushes in with Infinite Fist, hammering Midori with a non-stop barrage. Every hit makes Midori's body go numb, but even after all those punches, the captain is stunned to see him barely react. Then the captain grabs Midori in midair and calls for the others to strike while he holds him down. Hibiki instantly releases her sound visualization skill. Phoenix and the other captains hit Midori with their strongest moves at the same time, but Midori answers with Wall of Cutting Pearl, blasting out huge tornadoes that slam into all the captains. When the smoke clears, he's untouched and mocks Io for bringing weak fighters. Then he suddenly feels a huge presence above him. He looks up and sees the superintendent's assistant, forming a giant sun-like ball of energy. Midori instantly realizes that move gets stronger the longer it's charged. As he tries to make his own energy sphere to counter it, the female assistant uses Slav Maker and locks his hand in chains. Midori is shocked. He didn't expect them to have a Warp Awakener. Bound by the shackles, he can't cast. At the same time, the male assistant finishes charging and throws the massive fireball at the trapped Midori. Watching it rush in, Midori knows he can't dodge. He thinks his strongest wind attack at the last second might reduce the damage, but right then, he spots another identical fireball coming from the other side, made by Io through her mirror spell. The 2 fireballs crash together and explode, swallowing Midori in a massive